Good, thank you. Good evening, welcome to the Board of Selectmen Finance Appropriation and Advisory Committee, Cemetery Commission, and Highway Commission meeting of Monday, May 6th, 2024. This meeting is being recorded. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Once again, this meeting is being recorded without objection. The Chair of the Board of Selectmen will facilitate items 5, 6A, 6B, 6C, 6D, and 6E on the agenda with the understanding that the FAA Chair will chair the FAA Committee concurrently, including any allowable discussion, questions, business, or motions required.
Any objections?
First on the agenda is the approval of minutes for April 22nd, 2024. Mr. Marcy?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of April 22nd, 2024 as written.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
I'll abstain, I was not here.
4 and 1 abstention. Click on the draw there, Mr. Johnson. Thank you. Next on the agenda, the executive session minutes of April 22nd, 2024. Are we to those to be released? Not to be released.
Not to be released.
Mr. Chair, motion to accept but not to release at this time?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye. I will abstain.
4, 0, 1. Thank you. Next on the agenda, Dudley Grange, number 163, parking waiver. Request a parking waiver on both sides of Center Road on Thursday, June 20th, 2024, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. for the annual Strawberry Festival. Is anyone here tonight from the Grange? Yes, could you mind coming up, if you don't mind? Just tell us who you are.
Karen Gillen at Dudley Grange.
Thank you. So the Strawberry Festival, might have
Yes.
heard of it. Thursday, June 20th from 4 to 8, you're requesting a parking waiver for both sides of Center Road,
Yes.
correct? That's the way we've done it in the past?
Yes, it is.
Any concerns from either of the chiefs? No? What's the board's pleasure? Mr. Marcy?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the parking waiver on both sides of Center Road on Thursday, June 20th, 2024, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. for the annual Strawberry Festival.
Second.
Dudley Grange.
Motion and a quick second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you there.
Let's hope for a big day.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Next on the agenda, citizen comments. Does any citizen have anything they would like to speak about that is not on this evening's agenda?
Doesn't require a vote.
That doesn't require a vote. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Seeing none? Next, we have the public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 7:02 p.m. First on the agenda, fiscal year 2025 Springtown meeting warrant articles reviewed by Board of Selectmen and FAA. Mr. Ruda, how would you like to do this? Mr. Mayotte? I think we're pulling something up here.
Yep. So generally, Mr. Chairman, we go through article by article, see if there's any questions from either board or from the public. Take input based on the article we're reviewing.
Excellent. Just pull this up. I don't believe it updated to my... There it is. Pardon me, a little technological. So the first article and the second article, they're both pretty perfunctory. Third article is the fiscal year 2025 budget. Anything on the third article, Mr. Mayor?
The only changes, unless Mr. Ruda wants to go over any additional changes, the only changes would be the assessment for the Shepherd Hill Regional School System. The original assessment that came over was for $12,409,040, and it has been reduced down to, what's the total here? Well, the actual, the original increase was $1,471,058. Appears to be down to $1,302,888, which includes the capital assessment. So it has come down $100,000 from the original request. FAA has already made a recommendation on this. It was below the original request by $257,892. So they have come down a bit. I'll put it out to the FAA members if there are any questions about the budget at the increase at $1,302,888.
Nothing. Do we want to vote on these by the each or all at the end?
Good to know. Mr. Chairman, we have pretty much the last 2 or 3 meetings that we've had, joint meetings with the FAA, we've pretty much settled on the town budget with the exception of the increase in the school assessment. On just, as Mr. Mayotte was saying, the school committee voted on March 13th for an assessment number of $12,409,049. And that was a $1,471,058 increase. The FAA met on 3/25 to review that assessment. At the time, we had I think we only had the governor's budget available to us. And the thought process at the time was that the transportation money was going to come in better than what was projected in the governor's budget. So the FAA on 3/25 recommended an increase of $1,213,166. And so we plugged that into the budget, and we were working along those lines, and then we met again on 4/24 when House Ways and Means voted their budget, and that's generally where it ends up with Ways and Means. And that was an increase that provided a $12,240,879 assessment for Dudley, an increase of $1,302,888. And so that's where we are. I've plugged that House Ways and Means number into the budget, and that was the one remaining item within the town budget that we hadn't clarified, and I think that's what we're waiting for to vote Article 3.
Okay, so we're still waiting for clarification?
No, it's clarified.
Okay, I
It's-
just want to make sure I heard that.
When I say we, I should have said I was waiting for clarification to put
Okay, thank you.
the post the warrant.
Anything from Mr. Sullivan?
So, to the administrator, or to the chair of the FAA, the number as presently presented includes the capital assessment.
Yes. 351,313.
So, we would be looking at an approximate, take out the capital assessment, because hopefully that'll be debt excluded. We'll be looking at about a 900,000 increase, average, I'm just rounding the numbers.
Yeah.
On top of the 900 last year, on top of the regular assessment. Did we ever get rationale from the school committee as to why they, bless you,
Thank you.
voted to taking a number higher than what the superintendent recommended? Guys, but I saw public comments, but there was no, it was just a pretty much, we're gonna go for the A, B, C, D option. They took the highest one.
I believe there's something in there with the state funding formula, and there's an additional assistant superintendent in their middle school foreign language. And I'm just going from memory.
So, I don't know if this question would be for the treasurer or not, but what was our new growth figure this year?
For transportation. Isn't that her original?
The last figure I'd seen, here comes Rich, I don't want to speak out of turn, but the last figure I'd seen, it was not anywhere near the amounts being talked about.
I don't think it's any,
I just want to put the number out there so people understand.
yeah, basically, the assessments and the costs, both sides are going up faster than the ability for us to raise taxes.
Correct. You know, again, as Rich is coming, it puts the town, I mean, we kept our number well below 2.5, right, Mr. Ruda? Except for the fixed cost stuff that we have to,
Fixed costs brought us to 4%. The cost that we can control, we brought was about 1.8% increase over last year. And the new growth number, through the chair, Mr. Sullivan, from the assessors is 150,000.
so we had that meeting with the auditor several months back where higher than anticipated one-time source of revenues. And we tried to explain that, so it appears that any cushion that we may have just realized is probably going to be gone.
And I believe Mr. Mayotte and I both said it at the last meeting that we're looking at an override within a year or two.
You good? Yeah.
Fair statement to make? I think we both said that in our own ways. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
You know, I can't tell at this point whether or not there would be a need for an override, but at the way our projected numbers are looking, even a modest increase next year in the school budget is going to pretty much put us at zeros.
not trying to pigeonhole you, just.
So,
Mr.
where money comes
Carmignani.
from, I don't know after that.
The handout, the handout from about a year ago lists the 23 actual, new growth of 327,852 with amended new growth 146 versus 399 and expected 120. 2.5 is the 327,852, so the new growth is 146 for 23. That was your actual. I think there was an amended one when they did it for 24. And you were going off of 120 for 2024. So I'm guessing there's a similar number in the budget for this year. Because new growth is not specifically a new home, remodel, improvement. However, you're doing your cyclical inspections right now, so they're going to go through Cardinal Drive, Airport Road, so on and so forth, and they do the inspections. What may have been a mid-grade kitchen is now maybe was improved to without. So it's your approximate number for the year coming up. You won't know until you set the tax rate in November, but 120, 25.
Thank you.
Just looking at that big picture, big ticket, I know we've discussed it at almost every meeting, but I think it's important to hammer it home. It's not sustainable.
No, it's not sustainable. I think we can all agree on that.
Thank you, Rendell.
It's gonna be,
Again, not putting words in your mouth.
no, but I mean, we're gonna be back here shortly. Seems like it goes by real fast, so we'll be back here discussing this. At some point, we're either gonna have to get some better new growth, or to fund this, the only other way to fund it is either cutting the budgets again, or combination of that and raising some taxes. I mean, it's just.
Less cost and more revenue.
It's just,
One of the
unless somebody
two.
hits a lottery ticket.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Landry?
do we have any updated projected revenues?
No,
We do.
we do. Mr. Chairman, would you like to talk about these as we've done in the past and then vote once at the
Sure.
end?
Print that. Sure it's-
See here, Mr. Chairman, they plugged in 150 for a placeholder
Hmm?
in growth, but I knew that, I just wanted specific numbers, so thank you for indulging.
Thank you.
I'm looking for that.
There we go.
No. I'll look for it if you want to continue on.
Okay, he's going to continue on.
So, can I bring something up while we're?
Go right ahead,
looking
Mr.
at
Lane.
that? Thank you, sir.
So I know we received a correspondence from the Department of Revenue concerning revenue for 2025. And warned us that they appear to be too high.
We've made those adjustments.
And that some categories budgeting higher than 24, fiscal year 24, for annualized receipts. So, keeping this in mind, they stated it could be a problem. So, keeping that in mind with what we have for projected revenues, what the DOR communicated to us on higher receipts for 24, I think we should have some type of discussion on that too, so we can avoid a problem.
Okay. We've made those adjustments. The revenues are very conservative. Revenue projections are very conservative right now.
After we received that letter?
Yes, yeah, all set.
So we're all set.
Yeah, that letter was just in case there were any questions about the revenue projections.
Anyone else? Anything? Anyone about the budget? Anything? Going once? Okay. On to Article 4 from the Town Accountant, authorize revolving funds like animal care, arrest warrant services, Board of Health education program, cemetery fees. And it goes down to website expenses. Is there anything new here, Mr. Ruda, from last year?
No.
I didn't think so. Anything on this, Mr. Mayor?
No, just wanted to reiterate from our last meeting, these are just spending limits for the accounts. They are not spending in the accounts. Sometimes there's some confusion, why are you spending this much money on this? So these are just spending limits.
Correct.
Yep. Revolving accounts. Money comes in, money goes out. Anything from anyone on the revolving accounts? Anyone? No one. Article 5, Water Sewer Commissioners, to see if the town will transfer from sewer retained earnings $300,000 for the payment of Webster, $80,000 for Webster Troop for fiscal year '22, and $220,000 for Webster Troop for fiscal year 2023. Take any other action relative there too. Do you have any thoughts on that, Mr. Chairman?
It's quite a bit. Is there, can we get, maybe, is the commissioner here?
Mr. Zakowski, would you?
You want to kind of,
Thank you.
yes. What, can you kind of go through what was the process here, of these kind of bills from Webster?
$80,000 is what's left of the true-up from 2012 to 2022. We paid that's half of what had to be trued up. Through lack of communication and whatever, the annual true-up wasn't being done. And Webster created a new water sewer board, so now we're doing it on an annual basis. We're meeting 2 to 3 times a year now. The 200,000, well, that 80,000 was to true up for those years. At that time, we had not made an adjustment to our 2024 budget. So that true-up amount, we made the true-up and we evened it out, but we hadn't changed our current budget because of the way they all lined up. So we still had the amount of money that we had to true up, plus the new. This brings us up to where we should be after 15 years of not having had a true-up.
So we have a 15-year bill here?
That's basically, yes. What it is as the budget changed from year to year, there were no adjustments. For a bunch of years, we overpaid. That evened out. It went to 0, and then we started underpaying, and it evened out, and this is what came of it.
So is that on our end?
It's on our end now, yes.
And so 220 now for 23?
That will bring our budget in line so that each year the increase will be minimal or, as you know, more controllable.
Anybody else? So you have that reflected in your 2025 budget.
Right.
Right,
Our
so-
2025 budget, the line item for Webster treatment,
Yeah.
you'll notice the difference between 2024 and 2025 is significant.
Right.
It's about $300,000. But that now gets our budget to where it needs to be. The cost of electricity, the cost of improvements to the treatment plant in Webster, they're just, it's the way it happened. They didn't have a board over there up until about 3 years ago. It was all done by the town administrator, and it was the town manager, rather, and it wasn't, the process was broken.
So your 2025 budget goes from 508,000 right up to almost 900,000.
That's correct.
So
This-
is there going to be a shortfall for 2024? You got
No.
2022 true up, 2023 true up,
No,
and a 2025 budget.
right.
So where is the 2024 true up?
We will true that up at the end of the year. You true that up after the budget's over.
Which means there's going to be another transfer of retained earnings to pay that.
No, it shouldn't be. We should be able to take care of it within our budget.
So is it in your budget?
Yes, that's that 800,000
That's what that is.
increase. That increase takes into account all of that change.
All right.
You know, we would send letters every year, we didn't get responses, or the responses came into the wrong department. We didn't get them. You don't beg somebody to build, for the privilege of paying them more money. We knew it was coming.
Okay.
All we can do is put it in
Just being
retained
honest,
earnings
trying to-
and wait until they ask for it.
You know, trying to, just being honest, just trying to, look at the numbers here, and it's very difficult to kind of have any kind of consistency with your numbers, but
It was very difficult.
who's doing the accounting work for all of your numbers? Exactly. I mean, are you putting us all together? or-
Between Webster and, we have a consultant, Paul Brinkman, and their consultant is the Abrams Group, and they get together, we all get together a couple times a year, and we hammer out the budget. We hammer out what the cost is going to be for the next year. We do a true-up in October, and then in March or April, we look at the capital for the next year in anticipation of the new budget.
All right.
It's all per the IMA.
Would you, I'll ask, Mr. Chairman, you mind if I go a little off topic here? Because it kind of goes back to the budgeting numbers. If I may ask.
Yeah, part of the budget, go ahead.
So can I read you something, Scott?
Sure.
It says, I just received, a lot of people received a letter recently.
I have it here.
At the meeting held on 4/3/24, a public hearing was held. Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners unanimously voted to increase the water and sewer rates, and they are effective in the next billing cycle.
Right.
So unfortunately, I couldn't attend that. The house I live in has private water, private well, but I own a couple properties that do have
Sure.
water and sewer. So I couldn't attend, so I went on your website, and I was looking for some sort of financial numbers, cash flow numbers, operational budget numbers going forward, looking at all the things that you guys have done recently.
Sure.
Couldn't find them on the website. I got a hold of some of the handouts that you had for that evening, and I didn't see anything in there.
There's a revenue report there.
I didn't see a 5-year revenue report, I saw.
A who?
Yeah, well, I didn't see a cash flow report. So I didn't see anything that gave me kind of an idea of what kind of revenue and costs he had coming up. So, and there was no discussion of it, really any discussion of it. So where are you basing, you had a rate increase. And you're the only committee in town that has the ability to raise people's taxes without a vote.
No, we do not. It's not a tax, it's a cost of, it's the cost of the water that flows out of your pipe.
Okay, so it's a fee.
It's a fee.
Fee, tariff, duty, call it whatever you want, Scott.
No, it's the same as buying a gallon of milk. You buy a gallon of
You're raising people's
water.
taxes. And I think that's a responsibility that should be taken very seriously.
It is.
So I was looking at you, trying to find your cash flow numbers, your numbers for all your projects coming up, to justify where you come up with a 10% tax increase. And there was none. So
Did you stop down at the office down at the
I've tried to find the numbers to see where you guys are heading, and there is none. Where did you get? I think it was mentioned, but you get your rate increase, your recommended rate increase. Where did that come from?
We hired our engineering firm in 2020, yes, in 2019, I believe, they did a rate study that's projected it out 10 years. We've gone through this over and over and over again.
Well, you've done a rate study. An engineer did a rate study back in 2022, based on
2019, and then they updated it in 2022. Right.
Based on that information back in 22 done by an engineer.
Right.
But you haven't had an accountant do any of this stuff. You haven't had a CPA do all this. So you have an engineer, he comes up with a rate study. You guys go with a rate study of a blanket 10%. You've got no cash flow statements. You've got no operational statements to show anybody. And an entire board of people voted to raise people's taxes by 10%.
We did not raise taxes. We raised a water rate.
You raised taxes
It's
by 10%.
not a tax.
With absolutely no financial data to go by.
Yes,
other
we
than a
have
rate-
financial data, and if you stop at the office, you can get it.
You had a rate hearing.
That's right, and we had all the information
Nothing
there.
available for anybody to even look at it. Is that everybody in town that's on water sewer going to come into your office and go through your financial numbers to see exactly what your rate?
Information is there.
It's just amazing to me that you guys raise rates.
The revenue reports
And not
come
only-
from the treasurer collector's office.
I'm sorry, we're getting a little testy here, but not only did you raise rates by 10% without financial numbers to justify it, all right? But then you guys you're no longer the water and sewer department. You're the water, sewer, and social services department now. Because you turn around and said, well, we're going to raise rates, but we're not going to raise rates equally amongst everybody. If you're in this tier, you only get this rate. But if you're in the higher tier, you get the higher. So instead of...
Sir, you're a finance guy, you don't understand how it works?
Yeah, I understand how it works. So the people that pay more money got to pay even more. The people that paid less on the lower tiers don't.
The bottom
You
tier,
decided that.
Tier 1 is a cut for every single user. Every user gets a Tier 1 cut.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Okay, so.
So the Tier 1
So
cut
everybody
goes
got a
to
10%?
everyone.
Everybody gets 10%. Next year, if you guys decide 15% without financial numbers, that's what people
We
gotta
have
pay?
financial numbers, and they're there.
I would appreciate if you could forward them to the finance committee. Be nice, because I can't find any of them anywhere.
That's good, yeah.
You didn't look in the right place.
Mr. Chairman, are you good with the Article 5? Explanation from Article 5? It's been a little bit, I'm not sure if that was explained to your liking or not.
Oh, sorry. I
Fine.
apologize for getting off topic, but
No,
I'm just,
my fault is I let people go a little too long.
when we have water and sewer, we have all of these operational costs. We have true-ups that we're paying from 2012. We get, I'd like to know how the accounting is being done in that department, and how you just blanketly come up with a 10% tax increase for everybody without having any of these financial numbers in front of them. It's just
Maybe a
amazing.
joint meeting, the water, sewer, and the FAA.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much we're gonna get those numbers.
The first Wednesday of every month.
Okay, next up, we've got Article 6. Oh, look, it's the Water Sewer Commissioners again. To see if the town will transfer from water retained earnings, $4,380.00, so $4,380 for unpaid bills from fiscal year 2023, or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan.
just a comment. The good thing is, this is only from a couple of years ago, not a decade ago.
Okay. Any questions or comments, Mr. Mayor?
4,000's peanuts.
Yeah,
I ain't gonna argue about that.
Anyone here? Anyone going once? Okay. Next on the agenda, treasurer collector, to see if the town will appropriate from free cash the amount of $10,382.25 for unpaid bill to Boston Mutual in fiscal year 2023, or take any other action relative thereto. Did you have any questions on this, Mr. Mayor? Mr. Chairman?
Anybody have any questions on the unpaid bill?
What's Boston Mutual? Is that an insurance company?
Sounds like an insurance company, possibly our,
Health insurance, I think.
Health insurance?
It's life insurance.
Life insurance?
life insurance. Life insurance? Life insurance, yes. Any questions from? We're all good? Anyone here have any questions about the Boston Mutual? Guess we don't. Article 8, Police Department Police Vehicle, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $54,596.00 from free cash to pay for the purchase of a police vehicle, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
No, just, Mr. Chairman, this was voted on by capital improvement and approved.
So what's the source of funding, Mr. Chair? I know it
This
says,
would,
Source of funding?
this would be free cash.
Free cash.
so it won't be a lease, a chief, it'll be a purchase?
It was approved up to 60,000, so I think he found a little.
Well, glad we came under that. Anything from, anything?
Questions on
Anyone? Any questions on the police cruiser? Seeing none. Next on the agenda, Article 9, Treasurer Collector and Town Clerk annual increases. To see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $4,143.00 from free cash to budget line item, bunch of numbers, to fund salary increase for the Treasurer Collector for fiscal year 2025, and $3,566.00, 3566, from free cash to budget line item to fund salary increase for the town clerk for fiscal year 2025, or take any other action relative thereto. Anything on this, Mr. Chairman?
No, these are typical. We did it, I think we did it last year. We did it inside the budget.
Elected officials need to be approved at town meeting, they're not appointed.
But we did motion it inside the budget, but this customarily, it's done by a warrant article, so.
Any questions? Any questions? Anyone on that? Any questions on that? Anyone on that?
It's the same for.
Seeing none. Next on the agenda, fund employee merit pool to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $20,071.32 from free cash to fund merit-based increases for non-union employees, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Chairman, anything on that?
Any questions on the merit pool? Robin, any questions?
So when, in a previous draft, I think the amount that we had listed was 19,839, and it's adjusted now. What's the basis of the adjustment? It's not by a lot, I just am curious.
Yeah, and when we went back and looked at it, we fell a little bit short with one of the employees that we want to be able to, based on the merit, be fully funded to see if they reach that potential. If not, we would have been short on one of the employees. And just for the record, it was not a department head, and it's not any collective bargaining agreement union personnel, so.
Okay. All I got.
Good catch. Anyone have any questions? Mr. Breyer?
Yeah, just a quick question. Approximately how many employees does that represent, and what's percentage increase? Is it a 2.5% or a 2% or a 3% increase, whatever?
We try to budget for 3%, and it's around 19 employees, I believe. But that doesn't always mean that, so if we don't award it based on merit, it will carry over to the next, that article will still be there, so we would adjust next year's request accordingly. It's just, it's budgeted to that level to make sure we have enough based on merit to award to people. And again, those merit-based evaluations are completed by department heads and supervisors.
Anyone else have any questions on that? On to the next. Mandatory dam inspections, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $30,304.00 from free cash for the purposes of performing 4 regulatory 1 dam inspections and reporting requirements in accordance with 302 CMR 10.00 and Mass General Law, Chapter 253, or take any other action relative thereto. Anything on this, Mr. Chairman?
Got to be done.
Gotta be done.
Mr. Chairman, I'll also mention that there was a slight adjustment from 25 to 30 because the town is out of compliance on several dams that require that the hazard mitigation plans be updated. So we'd have to pay a consultant to update those plans. And that's to keep us in compliance with DCR, who oversees that program.
Got it. Anything from the public on dam inspections? Seeing, hearing none, moving on. Next up is the planning board shared driveway standards to establish design standards for shared driveways. I believe we're going to refer that to the planning board, correct? So I don't think that's any action from any of us. Anybody here from the planning board? Speak on this? Wasn't there a meeting posted?
Mr. Chairman, there was a meeting posted. There's also a public hearing on this item on the 8th. So
Okay.
I think it's a good idea to refer this for a recommendation to the planning board on the town meeting floor.
I forgot last time, for the people who don't know, just please tell us who you are and your address.
Yep, John Breyer, 16 Flaxfield Road. The planning board held a public hearing about a week and a half ago, and there's really good involvement, and we're really trying to clean this up so that something does get passed at the town meeting. My question is, because their meeting is this Wednesday, they've continued the public hearing, and former members of the planning board, and other members have kind of all weighed in. If they do come up with a revised language, is there still time to get the clean language in before the final is published? That way they don't have to do a bunch of amending on the floor?
I believe they'd have to do an amending.
So I did ask that question to town council. We're going to be right up against the posting requirement, but if we provide a handout, it will streamline.
Okay.
Instead of having to talk through the entire amendment, if we provide, if the planning board provides a handout and wishes to amend using that handout, that would pass muster on.
All right, yeah, because they've been very productive, and I'm encouraged that there's going to be something there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Article 13, Board of Selectmen, Quinnebog Rail Trail, acquisition of land, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by gift, purchase, or otherwise fee, leasehold, easement, license, or any other interest in real property in, on, over, across, under, and along all or any portion of the land, premises, easements, or right-of-way in Dudley, on, under, over, or adjacent to inactive Mass DOT Railroad right-of-way, known as Southbridge Secondary Railroad Line, milepost Webster TL to Thompson, Connecticut TL, Southbridge TL to Thompson, Connecticut TL, with an area of proposed occupancy of 20,500 linear feet, shown on the plan on file with the town clerk, as it may be amended for purposes of establishing, constructing, operating, improving, and maintaining a multi-use trail for transportation, open space, and active recreation purposes, including access thereto, and for all of the purposes for which rail trails are used in the Commonwealth, on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deems to be in the best interest of the town, and further to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds $100.00 from free cash, including all costs and expenses related thereto, and or accept gifts for these purposes, and further to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take such actions and execute such documents and agreements as are necessary to effectuate the purpose of this article, or take any other action relative thereto.
The town has a grant to maintain, to provide some maintenance along the rail trail, including resurfacing, well, actually adding surface to the rail trail, cleaning brush, that sort of thing. That grant has to be completed by June 30th. When we went to execute the grant, we found out that we didn't have a lease, which is now a requirement by MassDOT. So they're requiring that we come up with a lease of $100 forever to provide for the language that you just read, Mr. Chairman, to give us the authority to take those steps, measures, and maintenance and improvements on the rail trail. And that's pretty standard language that went through town council. Again, it's a lifetime lease for $100.
Got it. Mr. Chairman, anything on a lifetime lease for $100?
Nothing on $100, but once this grant money runs out, what's our obligation to maintain this stuff? Is this gonna be a budgetary item? Or
We lease the land, so we maintain it as we see
we
fit,
need it.
just like we have. We've been operating this way since we acquired the rail trail years ago. This just codifies it, basically. We maintain it to the standard prescribed by the Board of Selectmen.
It's a good thing. There's a lot of cars parked there. A lot of
Yep.
people use it. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing, Mr. Chairman.
Anything further? Anything, Mr. Chairman, from your board?
Anybody? Any questions on this one?
Anything here? Anything here? Anyone in the public? Rail trail, $100? Nothing? All right, next up, we have Board of Selectmen waterline easement, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase, gift, and/or eminent domain a permanent utility waterline easement in, on, under, along, and across Eagle Drive, as shown as plan entitled Rocky Hill Estates, dated August 1st, 1989, prepared by Para Land Surveying, Southbridge, Mass. Plan Book 623, Plan 67, a copy of which is on file with the Assessor's Office, or take any other action relative thereto. Mr. Chairman, do you have anything on this?
Anybody?
Anyone from the board? Anyone from the audience? Seeing no one. Next up, we have Dudley Historical Commission, to see if the town will vote to amend the use of town-owned property known as the Dye House property located on Ardlock Place, Assessor Map 117, Lot 076, with a total of 7.41 acres to be used for a municipal parkland, and further for the Dudley Historical Commission to name it Centennial Park for the Tricentennial of Dudley, or take any other action relative thereto. Is there anyone here from the Historical Commission?
Mr. Chairman, while Mr. Bazinet's coming up, the board had asked that he come back and for a few
Yes.
questions that I think Mr. Sullivan brought up.
Yes, that was about a month ago. Mr. Bazinet, just for the people who don't know who you are, if you could just say.
Who? Where? Ed Bazinet, Historical Commission.
We gotta follow protocol. We gotta
Yep.
treat everybody the same. What were the questions that you were coming back with answers to? I believe, let me see. Do you remember was it me or was it you?
I thought we also had left it that we were gonna get some kind of conceptual plan as to what it exactly was going
Remember
to
that.
look like.
And I remember I asked how many parking spots,
Right.
because if we were going to have the tricentennial piece there. The other thing I noticed, I went and I had a look at it. I haven't been there since I was a kid. And there's one thing that stood out to me. Right when you pull in off Village Street, that street, I don't think two cars, you got, it's like the old days of the French River Bridge where there's one car at a time going either way. Any plans for that if we're going to have it that high traffic there?
What we're looking at here is just to name it and go into a conceptual assessment of what can be done there and what should be done there. And part of that's going to come back after we have some public hearings and stuff to say, okay, these are the issues we've got. How do we go forward with those?
I remember what it was. If we named it and named it a park, does that change how it has to be as far as if we change the name and declare it a park or historical land, that the contents of the ground, I don't know if they're, and I imagine town council will answer this the night of town meeting, if there has to be,
No good.
I thought you were gonna finish my sentence for me. If there has to be some sort of regulatory testing done there, and, I mean, we all know what happened when we had to start regulatory testing the dump, so.
I think the problem too, Mr. Chair, was, I believe, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, you wanted approval to call it Centennial Park because it would have, my words, looked better on the application for,
Yes.
you were gonna get funding from somebody, but you had to have the application in by a certain time. And Kerry suggested that night that language, I don't want to speak, something to the effect, the concept is to call it Centennial Park, or the long-term goal, whatever, however the phraseology was gonna be. I thought that's how we left it, plus we were gonna get a conceptual plan. 'Cause that is my biggest fear, that it's a thin road. Are we gonna have to put paved parking? Are we gonna allow cars, because when you go in, it's flat on the right, facing that pad. Then there's the rise. Then you go up above. Then you have a house, right, beyond the pad. So, I know Ed talked about entertainment, it wasn't gonna be, I forget his phrase, but he's much better than me with the language. Small. You know,
Amphitheater.
one or
I
two-
remember
yeah,
amphitheater.
One or two man band type things. He wanted to bring power, water, utilities to that site. So, we all said that night, I'll say it again, I'm not opposed to having something there at some point. It just seems to me, and that was our question, I think, that night, if we named it to Centennial Park, was that like a tacit approval that going ahead, it was going to be approved? Because isn't there already land on the other side of the pond that the town owns, below the dam facing Low Pond, if you go on Flaxfield?
Yeah, there could be over there, but I wouldn't see that as part of this.
No, but I'm saying we already have something over there, and if we already have something over there, Flaxfield's a wider road, there's access there already, I think it's got MJ can probably speak on it, there's like a piece of highway that blocks it.
It's a guardrail that blocks it.
Yeah, and there's like a trail that goes down to Low Pond, it's a good sized parcel also, I'm not saying we should go over there to clear things out, but I just, if we name it? Does it give tacit approval? And I think there's a lot of questions on that site, that's all, for access and emergency vehicles.
Right, and that's why I'm out looking for funds to get a design, a concept design going that would come back and we'd have all these discussions. Is this the best use for that area? How would we do it? What's our intent? I see that more as an honorary area for our industrial past. Occasionally there might be an event there, very unusual, not unlike what we've done at French River Park in Webster. But for the most part, it's, hi honey, let's get a pizza and drive over to the quietest place in town and just sit and enjoy the sound of water. And that's literally what that place does. It's a pocket park. It's not intended to be a high-use park by any means. No expectation that we'd have games there or things for people to do other than enjoy what's there. And then at the same time, we would provide interpretive panels, discreetly done, so that people could understand what was there and what else was in the town in this last couple of 100 years that turned us into a mill town. And that we'd have maybe maps laid out, kind of like what we did at the town common, but in a bigger scale. The town common, we have a few narrative things, but this would be have to be a little bigger to cover all the industries that we want to do. So it wouldn't be just Stevens, it would be every other mill would be represented. And we'd want to fund it by asking families to look back and say, yeah, we had ancestors that worked here. This is, for most of us, why our people came here. And how are we honoring those people? On the town common, we honor the founding fathers, the founding families. On this one, we're honoring the working families. Not the others didn't work, but these would have been the working families that came in.
So, Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
actually, I'm going to let Mr. Johnson go, then Mr. Carmignani came up.
I believe one of the actual questions that was asked, and it was for town council, not for historical commission, was if we name this a park and then the activities fall through for whatever reason, would we be able to possibly seek other options for that land? And I believe we got an answer saying that we could. I vaguely remember that answer.
So if we go through, if the article goes through, it's Mr. Chairman, it's a factor of the town meeting to designate this as parkland. If for some reason it was not suitable for parkland, the town meeting can undo it and make it whatever it decides to make it, or use it for whatever it decides to use it for. It's town-owned land right now. This article is asking the town meeting to designate it as parkland for use as a park. The size of that park, the scope of the park, everything having to do with conceptual plan that Mr. Besnet's talking about remains to be seen. But all you're doing is designating this land as parkland, and in doing so, assigning a name to it.
Okay? Yep. Mr. Carmignani, I didn't forget you.
Rich Carmignani, Airport Road. For the conceptual design, it's going to be the same firm that did the playground beautification or reinvention. Michael Radner is the person who's been contacted. So the specific questions, road width, whatever would need to be handled wouldn't be speculated on. It would be, here is what the professional design person brings forward, and reviewed in a public hearing like this, so that we can tick as many boxes as possible, as opposed to a single person's vision, as opposed to an encumbrance or potentially just more traffic and noise for seemingly another neighbor. So at the end of the day, it's the design firm coming in. It's a trusted design firm. There was a great deal of engagement. There's a lot of people here tonight, but there were twice as many who were half as tall here, along with their parents, picking out what the playground was going to look like. I envisioned something similar with the cross-section. A lot of older people, a lot of younger people, and I think it's important. We have a 300th anniversary coming in. We talk about raising revenues. This is one of the things. Why would you want to do business in Dudley? Coming up on 300 years, and this is how we went from, the first shovel in the ground, agrarian subsistence farming, to having some Slater mills. This is our community. This is where we are. There's no highway going through it, but this is something that we should be. We have a river to one side. This is how we can enhance Dudley, get it on a map. You want to be able to hit the Google and say, here we go.
If I remember correctly, too, I don't think it was within our purview to declare that. I believe it has to be done by town meeting.
And I think the most important thing is to take all of the steps. The board has their opinion, the general public has their opinion, but it's a nice piece of land, and it would be, love to see it improved, and I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Sullivan?
I'm good. I think my questions will be more germane when there is a public hearing. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on? Mr.
Chairman.
Landry, thank you.
Just to keep in mind some things in the future down the road, if we do take this on as a park with some standards, regulatory compliance, any hazardous material, where the town lies as far as being responsible, then funding to clean it up or maintain it or keep those standards up to par, that's going to be an additional cost. You got to keep that. We don't know what it is right now, but it's going to be an additional cost. And as we're in budget season, like last year, this year, every penny counts. We know what we want to spend it on, what we don't want to spend it on. We have things we must spend it on, like public safety. So when we're looking at spending more money that's unknown in the amount, that's very risque right now. So I just want to let that out there.
Well, Mr. Chair, since he touched on it, that was one of my questions. Mr. Bazinet said very rare or infrequent use. Who would decide who gets to use it? Was my first question. Who would maintain it? As Mr. Landry just said. And someone said something about parkland definition. What would be, I don't know what a parkland definition is, and how would that impact approval at town meeting someday?
Absolutely right. All great questions for town meeting. Yes, sir. You could come up, tell us who you are, your address.
My name's Jim Ploss. I live at 23 Idlock. I'm the guy on the other side of the property. I'm not opposed, flat hands down, but got to have an idea what that property is being used for today. The hazardous material that you were talking about or alluding to, there is a pile of asbestos roofing material from the dye house. It's been sitting there for 10 years. It's going to need to be taken care of before we can let kids play in there. They already are, but we don't want the liability with the town. Additional costs of maintaining. We got utilities. Which department is going to take that on to come in and clean the trash? For the last 10 years, I've been cleaning the trash there. With more people, I don't really want to do it. I have. I probably still will, but I don't want to. Safety, the dam, people fish off of it. It's good recreation. I like when people are up there doing that. At night, there are cars parked out there. I'm picking up beer bottles, booze bottles, pot containers, contraceptives, needles. It's all happening out there. We make it bigger, better, let more people know about it. What's going to happen? those are concerns of our neighbors. My next door neighbors, unfortunately, the other abutting neighbors were not available to come tonight. They're out in Arizona and busy otherwise. But they both said, we don't want it. Where are they gonna park? Right now, there's a parking area. It's right at my driveway. Literally, I step out of my driveway, I step into the parking area. It doesn't get used. All the cars park on the dam, and they go fishing. On the low pond side, there's a 15 to 20-foot drop-off. We have kids there, we're gonna have to do something about that. There's just, safety would have to be paramount. I guess those are my issues at this point. I probably have a few more that I'm forgetting.
You're fine.
Thank you.
Town meeting.
You know, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
that was, again, I don't want to get too far down the hole if we're going to do, but as soon as Mr. Bazinet said, go up there with pizza, husband and wife, first thing I thought of, Lover's Lane, like kids, you know, we have problems now, MJ can probably, people go up there and they try to pull the boards out to drain water off. We've had issues there for longer than I've been on the select board, even when the Dye house was still falling apart.
We had to put
I
steel
just-
ones and bolt them down.
Yeah.
We had to put steel ones in and bolt them down.
No, I know, I said yes, I agree. I mean, it's, that the gentleman just, as an abutting neighbor, I would be very, very leery about the end result next to my house, because I know Mr. Bazinet said, you know, intermittent use or not infrequent or whatever the word he used, but yeah, the more you advertise it, like Rich said, Google it, whoa, that's a great spot, let's go up there. Not always for pizza and sunsets.
I think part of the reason that I looked at this is because it's been ignored and it's been bastardized, if that's a good word. We've done things to that area that we should never have done. We've allowed it to go on all this time, and we need to clean up that mess. And I'm looking at a way to do that, to put a better name on it, to have a purpose for it, and to have it evaluated so that we know what's there and under there and how that has to be remediated. And then we can go ahead and figure out, can we afford that? How are we going to do it? Is that going to be a public contribution thing? You know, like we did with the library, people coming forward and saying, I had relatives that worked in the mills, I'm willing to put up some money. I want to acknowledge their service to the town. Otherwise, it's just going to be someplace to complain about. And that's what we do not want for our 300th.
I guess I'm just having trouble wrapping my brain around why we have to name it before that can happen.
Why we have to name it what?
Why we have to name it. Why we have to designate it a park before we entertain the thought. Because that's what we're doing here. We're entertaining a thought, not against it.
Yeah,
great idea.
The idea is to name it as the premier focus for our 300th anniversary. And I don't want to put a person's name on it. We got a lot of those kicking around.
How many people do you think would attend the 300th anniversary of Dudley? 10, 100, 1,000? How many do you think?
How many would attend that?
How many would attend the 300th anniversary of Dudley? 10, 100, 1,000?
Oh, I would say 1,000.
It's not happening there.
No, it doesn't have to happen there. That's one of the things we would be doing. We're not going to just sit around and say, okay, we're going to do one thing for it. Because everybody else is going to say, well, we have to have a parade, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, you know. And those things can go along. But for 300 years, I think an acknowledgement of the workers that came here and the reason this place survived, not just for agriculture, but for the mills, is important historically. And we're just eliminating mills right now. You know, they're just going down. People don't have that history in their head, and they need to have it.
Okay, thank you. Miss?
Hi, I'm Jeannie Kachanak, 31 Flaxfield Road, and I just want to say that I agree with you that we're putting the cart before the horse. We're trying to designate this as park area when we don't even kind of believe that it can be park area. We don't see that the road is wide enough. We don't see that the town has the funds to maintain the park. Yet we want to go out and designate it as a park. To me, we need to understand what we're going to do here and who's going to pay for it and who's going to maintain it. We have a beach on the other side of our pond, and we face the same thing over there. The beach is not maintained, the trash is overflowing, the people are swimming in the water, there's no bathhouses. Where do you think they're going, right? And, you know, we've been fighting this for years on the other side of the pond, and now we're being faced with the possibility of that happening on this side. So I just think that we're a bit premature here in going out and designating it as a park when we don't really understand how that, you know, can be put together and how it can be maintained by the town.
Thank you. Mr. Breyer, just keeping you on your toes, that's all.
John Breyer, 16 Flaxfield. First, I do have a personal bias. My porch overlooks that site, so I am affected personally by it. As Ed knows, I've been a long supporter of the Historical Commission. I think this is going to be the first time I've disagreed with them on something here. There is a toxic sludge pile. When that water was down from the drought a couple of years ago, I was metal detecting there. I almost got sucked in. I mean, there's some nasty stuff down there, and you're going to open up Pandora's box if you start remediate or moving soil. I always looked at that as not wasted land, but an asset in the bank for the town, because you get 2 residential lots at $150,000 each there. You got 7 acres, you know, and so you could easily sell them for $150,000 each for if there's ever a really rainy day. Now, speaking as a former planning board and part of the master plan committee, there are we have a tough time taking care of our own park and recreation areas today. Why would we start a new one? For what Ed wants to do, the logical place is the Stevens Linens development, the riverfront. So I would say, let's engage with the owner of the mill, see if he'd be willing to donate a portion of that riverfront, and there's your Centennial Park that'll help with the whole restoration of that if we can ever get it off the ground. So there are better places than that. That's just my personal opinion.
Mr. Breyer. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Hello, could you just tell us who you are and your address?
Joyce Narodzinski, Lakeview Ave. I'm on Merino Pond. So I just had some questions about it. I don't think it's the best location for it, but so there's going to be water and electric, and I was curious who's going to pay that bill. I've been on the Recreation Committee and the Beach Committee and raised funds for the beach. And in most recent years, we've had issues with trash. So now we're going to create another space where we're going to go and have pizza. And who, you know, they're supposed to take their trash with them. Well, we know people don't do that. So who's going to be responsible? Another, you know, the DPW is going to have to go down and put out trash cans. We can't get them to put trash cans at the beach.
I don't mean to, we have a highway department, and we don't have a DPW,
Well,
but keep going.
you understand.
No, that's
I think
just
about added
that's a sharp-
patrols.
those are 3 sharp letters to some folks, that's all.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
My issue would be also patrols. You're giving them another area to patrol. And many residents on the street, Mr. Bazinet did speak to you the last time he spoke and said that he had spoke with residents, but he didn't say if they were opposed or for it. And I think you have many people here that are residents that are opposed. So, and another issue would be Centennial Park. I would want it to be named the Die House for what it was. Centennial Park, I understand, but maybe that could be somewhere else. I feel, let it be known for what it was, the Die House. So trash removal was my issue. Added patrols, the town, like, we're crying money now, and now we're gonna add to it? I mean, the Historical Society is not going to pay the water or the electric bill, because now you're going to have a light there for safety. And just getting rid of the asbestos, I didn't realize that that was there, but getting rid of asbestos, I don't even want to know what the cost of that is.
I don't remember what was the next question, so.
And will it be public or private? Is it going to be for the town of Dudley only, or is it going to be a public place?
I think this is and I'm not cutting you short.
No,
By all
no.
means, keep going. And I'm really not cutting you short. But I think this is an excellent conversation to have at town meeting.
Well, I
When
mean,
we're
is it too
voting
late
for
to
it.
have it at town meeting? I mean, I just,
No, because
know.
at town meeting, we vote on this.
yeah.
At town meeting, we vote on this. And I'm not cutting you short. You can.
Yeah, it's okay.
As long as you're not swearing or threatening anybody, you're
I just
free to
think
go.
about, litter has been a huge issue and brought up to several selectmen board meetings throughout the town. And now we're going to create another place, and now it's going to become environmental, because now it's going to go in the water.
And the reason why I say this is good to say again at town meeting is because there'll be a lot of people there who weren't here tonight, who aren't watching this at home, and have no idea.
Yeah, so I am opposed to this area being used. I think there's other areas that it could be used. And I will say that if the Historical Society wants to, has money that they want to, what about the beach? Create a space at the beach, create a wonderful walkway that people can use, that park at Mason Road School, and can come down and create a space. That beach has such potential, and it's really, it's not used to its potential at all.
Agreed.
So, Mr. Chair, too, just a point of clarification. In the absence of any documentation, which I have never seen, it may be out there, that's the first I heard tonight that there's potential hazardous material still on that site. So I'm not saying that they're not asbestos shingled, as the resident just said, as Joyce just said, hazardous. So unless we got something somewhere that I haven't seen. I remember when the dye house came down, I actually spoke to MJ Gatsky and one of the previous superintendents about that to get my head on some information. So unless there's something out there, I don't want to create this hysteria where people hear that, oh my God, we have hazardous waste. So if there's something that says it is, this is.
That's probably why it hasn't been moved.
I haven't seen any official, I'm not saying it's not, I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it's not.
Mr. Gatsky, could I ask you a question? Is it fair to say that that site has not been remediated? It hasn't been remediated?
There's still some there.
Okay,
Thank you.
So there you go.
thank you. That's why I just want to make sure
Yep.
because I remember there was something to do and we took the dye house down. It was
There's still some in the hole.
yeah, I know.
There's,
One of the old timers.
I'm all set.
Anything else?
Those are my
Thank you.
questions.
Thanks, Rick.
Anything else wish to be heard on this matter?
Yeah, I just missed that because I can't hear. Okay, what was the issue?
There's still asbestos in the
Yes.
in the hole.
Well, given what was there, yeah, I understand it. But do we just leave that for the next 300 years? We got to clean up our mess at some point, folks. Now, all I'm asking for is a name there to go in under a grant and have it assessed, and public hearings. And then we're going to know. Right now, there's a lot of guessing.
There is, and I just want to correct a slight thing. You said our mess. That was the mess from Stevens Mill. That wasn't.
But it's the town's responsibility. We own it. Nobody else owns it right now, right?
No, I just wanted to correct you, just that we didn't make the mess. The town did not make the mess. We inherited the mess.
Okay. But it's our mess. We own it. If we ignore it, then all of this we're saying we're concerned about is like, well, we're concerned, but we don't care. And we shouldn't be doing that. So, see you at the meeting.
Excellent, thank you.
That's it.
Next up, we have the solicitor's bylaw from the police department. See if the town will adopt, well, I'll let you talk about it, chief. Save me from reading a few paragraphs.
That's good.
I'm just gonna make it real brief. It's about 4 pages long.
Yeah.
Currently, we don't have
It is.
nothing in the books for a solicitor bylaw. So if somebody wants to come into our town and go to your door, door knocking, they don't even have to check in with the police department. There's no set rules, there's no set guidelines. Throughout the last couple of months, we've had complaints from people where they've had solicitors at their door at 9 o'clock at night. They've had solicitors in their backyards. They had solicitors try their doorknobs. Basically, this outlines, this is almost like a draft from most other towns where the solicitors have to register with the police department. We do a background check, make sure there's nothing extensive on the criminal history. And if they don't abide by the rules set by the town, they can have their solicitor license revoked. And it just basically sets some kind of a guideline. This would not apply towards nonprofits and political. So if your Girl Scouts want to sell cookies, they can still go ahead and sell cookies. They don't have to get a permit. Political candidates, if they want to go door knocking, they don't have to get a permit. Again, this would just pretty much apply to, for the most part, your solar, your electricity, people that try to sell you electricity, and windows, doors, and whatnot. So, is there any questions by anybody?
Anyone have a question? Mr. Chairman, anyone? Yeah?
Anybody?
Oh, I'm just letting the boards know. Anyone in the public have a question about this?
Mr. Chair, my comment is if the police chief's for it, I'm for it.
I thank you for doing this. I work from home, and it's already started a couple times a day. I get banging on the door, and I stop because I don't know, did my daughter forget her key? Is it something important? And there's somebody with a name tag. So thank you. Anything else? We got one more for you while you're there. The Article 17 noise bylaw.
This one was, I believe, presented to the town a couple years ago. We had some complaints again this year, primarily from some construction that was started before 7 o'clock, unnecessary construction, I should say, and also some sporting events that the volume was excessive past a certain hour. Right now, again, we don't have anything in our bylaws where prohibits, let's say Nichols College or even Shepherd Hill to run the noise and music past a certain hour. Also, this would also apply to construction, so your neighbor wouldn't be able to start working on his driveway, jackhammering at 6 o'clock in the morning. They would have to wait till 7 o'clock. This would not apply to your snow blowing, stuff like that. It would even the same thing with like the lawn care. It would, for the most part, this is for heavy construction and also for the sporting events from our college and the high school.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone have anything? Mr. Chairman? Oh, Mr. Marcy, go ahead.
Chief, does this include the jake break? Is that what you meant by commercial activity generating noise? A lot of that lately around.
Yeah, before 7 o'clock. Yeah, that can include that, if it became a problem.
Anything from you? No?
How would we enforce the Jake break? Would we have to put up signs?
I think for the most part right now, if it's a common area, we would probably try to figure out if there's a same truck every day doing the same exact thing. But again, for the most part, this bylaw is intended for the construction vehicles, so they don't start before 7 o'clock, and also the sporting events.
It's not going to apply to any state road?
State road or any emergency road work would not apply to it. Same thing with the town. If you had a water main break, obviously they need to go out there and do some work. Same thing with the gas. If a gas line broke, this would be for that would be for construction that is planned. So again, if you were thinking about redoing your driveway, they wouldn't be at your house at 6 o'clock jackhammering your driveway, waking up your neighbors.
Anyone have anything here? Name and address, please.
Monica Freund Kaufman, 59 Baker Pond Road. So I know this is presented as mostly a construction and Nichols College or Shepherd Hill issue, but it does mention a lot of things that general folk might have a problem with in terms of loud noises from cars, people playing loud music at their homes. So I just was reading this over, and I'm struck by the fact that it seems rather subjective. So there's no decibel levels mentioned anywhere, and so I'm just concerned, how are we going to enforce this if we don't have a decibel level suggested or like cutoff? And then does anyone have professional decibel meters? And then what is going to be the objective measurement?
To answer that question, technically, it says here, to disturb the reasonable, quiet, comfort, response of a person. So we already have disturbing peace on the laws, on the state laws. So technically, if your neighbor's playing music too loud in the middle of the day, and we show up, it's unreasonable at the unreasonable time, then we don't have to go through the bylaw, we can go through the state law. So there's already something on the books for that part. The decibel meters, I know in the past, the Board of Health has done readings for decibels to see if there's anything reasonable, unreasonable. I didn't put anything in here, but for the most part, again, this was geared towards the heavy-duty equipment and the sporting events. And again, as far as the noise coming from somebody's loud party or stuff like that, that would be police matter anyways, and it would be up to the officer to decide whether it's reasonable, unreasonable, and we would go through the state law for that.
Anyone else have anything?
One quick one for the chief.
Mr. Sullivan.
So this bylaw does not prohibit vehicles passing through the town. We're talking about actual construction equipment, just to be clear, because
Correct. So
someone's going to ask that.
to actually start construction work. So again, we don't have anything in the books as far as we've had numerous calls. Can I start working in my driveway at 6 o'clock? Can I start digging for a pool at 6 o'clock in the morning? Right now, there's nothing in the bylaws. Technically, if your neighbor wants to schedule his pool installation at 6 o'clock in the morning, they can. They're probably going to call on it, and we'll show up and try to reason with people, but for the most part, this basically restricts the construction, any planned construction prior to 7 o'clock in the morning.
Right. I'm just trying to think, I know someone's going to say that means a truck can't drive through town. Yeah, they still can.
Yes,
Hi.
name and address, please.
Pat Fanning French, Partridge Hill Road.
Thank you.
So, football games and stuff at Shepherd Hill, I mean, they can't go past 9 p.m. I mean, do they usually? I mean, is that going to cause a problem?
Right here it says on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 7 to 9, and then the weekend would be 7 to 11. So they would have to be done by 11 o'clock, which I believe is fairly reasonable. And if for some reason they did want to have an extended concert or something like that, they would have to just go to the Board of Selectmen to get a permission.
Just wanted to say thank you. I missed that 11 p.m. on the weekends, so all set.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Linda Lorkevich, and I'm on 22 Sunnyside Road in Dudley, and I'm also the chairwoman for the Dudley Agricultural Commission. And one question I have on here, you have animal and bird noises. I did see on the back that there is an exclusion for farm animals. I just want to make sure that that's clarified, because if you have a cow that's in heat, she's gonna moo like you would not believe for days on end. And I mean, I can see like in the smaller suburban areas of town where you might have somebody who's raising chickens or ducks or something, that could become a problem. But like in the outskirts of Dudley, I mean, it shouldn't be that much.
It's excluded, so you're...
I want to make sure that it is.
Yeah. To answer your question, as far as the animals, there was, if anybody's owned like a parrot or some type of exotic bird like that, they scream, they yell, and that's pretty much what that is intended for. I used to patrol 3 o'clock in the morning on Oxford Ave, and there used to be a bird screaming for help every night. That's pretty much it right there, but not for farm animals, anything like that.
I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have one petitioner here for a citizen petition, but we have 6 citizen petitions. Mr. Chairman, did you want to go over those, or did you want to leave them?
I mean, you can read them out.
Some of them are financial in nature. Yeah, we'll read them out.
Mr. Chairman, historically, FAA generally does not make recommendations on citizens petitions.
Great.
So we really don't do that unless we're part of that actual petition. We can make a motion.
Understood. I think what I'd like to do is just read them so that people here and people at home know what's on the agenda for town meeting, so that if they so desire, they may show and vote for or against. Is the petitioner here from the citizen petition for term limits and going onward? I'll read them. Article 18, citizen petition, term limits. You will only have the right to hold public positions to 2 terms. You can only work in different departments in Dudley for 15 years. There will be no lifetime positions. Those who exceed the limit must resign. Now, this is something that a citizen put together, got signatures to put on the ballot. Not offering any opinion on this, just sharing the knowledge. Do you have anything on that, or your board, Mr. Chairman? Anyone here? And I think we'll avoid public comment on this until town meeting. We've had enough excitement for one day, I think. Article 19, citizen petition. When paying taxes, we expect the city to clear the snow and sand during winter, private and public streets. Any comment or anything on that, Mr. Chairman? From you or your board? No? Anything here?
Anybody?
Going once, going twice. Next, Article 20, citizen petition. After the age of 65, Dudley Town residents' real estate taxes on a primary home will be reduced by 50%. Mr. Chairman, did you have anything on that?
Anybody?
I can support that being.
Oh, you'd have to
But you're not
recuse
gonna-
yourself.
You're not gonna, meet your budget with
I
that.
do have a question about that. So do we have any idea what the impact to our receipts would be if that were approved?
I think it's kind of like a, oh, Mr. Johnson, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think you should refer that back to the petitioner.
Okay.
Great. Well, whatever comes off one end, it's teeter-totter.
Because the question also I raised when this first came up at the previous meeting, you can, the way this is worded, anybody can move to Dudley at age 64, and at age 65, they get a 50% reduction right off the top. How would that do for our demographics?
Good news is we could sell our houses for a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No school budget. Everybody be over 65.
Next on the agenda, Article 21, citizen petition. Only registered people can vote. Be a USA citizen. You must present ID with photo before voting. Trying to cheat, 1 year in prison. All calculating machines will be destroyed. You must vote in person. Votes will be counted on the same day. I don't think any of us have anything to say on that. Next one, Article 22, to reduce Dudley Town real estate taxes by 20%.
We might be living on that park.
Mr. Mayor, any comment about a wholesale 20% reduction in taxes, what that would do to our budget?
Yeah, we would reduce it by 20%.
Thank you.
There you go.
Anyone else from your board have anything on that? Anyone here? Going once, go?
70%, both articles passed for the 65 and over? 50 and 20?
I'm going to refer that to the petitioner. Last on the, last here before the main one, to override Proposition 2.5, you need 75% of all registered voters. All done with that. Article 25, citizen petition, audit committee. See if the town will vote to amend the Town of Dudley bylaws by adding a new section labeled permanent audit committee with the following text. And there is a text, I'm not going to read it. Mr. Breyer, people can read this at town meeting.
If I could, I'd like to just pass out, I sent it by email, don't know if you all got it, was
got
able to
it.
print out. But for those that didn't, there's a copy of the revised, and then also I wanted to pass this DOR publication memo recommending towns all adopt audit committees, and that's dated from 1998. The first thing I want to just start by saying is to clear up some misconceptions about the audit committee. This audit committee does not conduct audits. They don't conduct audits. Their primary duty is to hire the town auditor. And every 3 years, work with the town administrator and put it out to bid so that they make sure that they're always staying on top of things. The bylaw itself, I know your lawyer reviewed it, the town council, and you'll see the amended copy takes care of all that stuff. I've cleaned it up. There were minor comments. There was nothing that would stop the Attorney General from actually approving that this is written. And to let you know that the bylaw was basically taken from at least 20 different towns, everything from Longmeadow, Andover, Foxborough, Wellesley, Wayland, Westport, Newton, Townsend, Brookline, Natick, and Winchester. That's where we got the confidentiality provision that was approved by the Attorney General. The Hingham, and most of them actually have not limited to, when they say like the duties are include but not limited to, I kind of chuckled because it's in pretty much every bylaw out there. But again, trying to, I believe in hope. I'm hoping you guys come on board and support this. And so what I did here with the revised copy is make it so that at the end of the day, what you have here is a resource for the Board of Selectmen. And I think tonight is a great indication of how an audit committee could really benefit the Board of Selectmen. How do you make sure that you have accurate numbers so that you can plan your budgets? And every day when you come into the office, you should know exactly what your revenue is, how it compares to your budget, what it was year over year at a quick spreadsheet. And as long as that information is not getting to you, it's going to be tough for you to make good, positive, accurate decisions. Town government, right, you're all volunteers, and I give you credit. I mean, you get the good and the bad up there. It's tough. And as government continues to grow and things become more complex, you have to rely upon others. You have to rely upon subject matter experts in areas where you yourself may not have expertise. And what this audit committee is designed to do is provide you guys with subject matter experts. Hopefully, we get 2 CPAs and a lawyer. Sure. I'm sorry.
Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Breyer, you said hopefully. How do you ensure that you have qualified individuals on an audit board?
Well, at the end of the day, right, the town moderator appoints one, you appoint one, and the FAA appoints one. So as part of the, when you talk about as one of their duties, financial expertise, there's enough precedence in there, and that language is pretty much from every audit committee out there where it says financial expertise, is you're looking for people that can read income statements and balance sheets and know what debt ratios are and know what a ledger is and know how to carry debits and credits. And most of them have actually said CPAs, in a lot of the audit committees that are out there today. And I didn't want to limit, I didn't want to go that way because I know some of the people that have expressed an interest to me personally about the audit committee is actually someone that works at the state auditor's office as an auditor, right? And then you've got some CPAs, here in town. And you've got some people that have got experience with nonprofits and quasi-public agencies working on their books. And I think the broader that is, the better choice that you guys can all have in appointing the most qualified people. Now, when it comes time, if the audit committee passes, I'd be more than happy, I don't want to serve on it, but I'd be more than happy to coach him and guide him and teach him how to do the minutes and what's involved and how to report and be transparent and things along those lines. So what I'm really trying to do is create a win-win for everybody. And I think if you look at the changes that have been made, right, we make it clear that it's, we reference the Mass General Law now that actually hires the town auditor. All right, and if you look at the duties, you see, instead of saying ensure public records compliance, right, because that would conflict with the town administrator bylaw as being one of the chief records officers, we changed that to review and make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen in the town with respect to the town's public records policies and compliance with the state of Mass public records laws. So I really tried to make this a win-win so that the selectmen and the FAA could rely upon it. Earlier today, Mike brought up some great questions. There was a good back and forth with the water, sewer, and the FAA. This would be a perfect opportunity to say, let's ask the audit committee to just take a look and maybe give us a 10,000 foot, and do we need to look at it deeper? And then let them do the legwork and report back to you. Because there's just simply not enough time in the day for you to become experts on everything. And so to keep up with the times, this is it. Now, in talking with some of the members of the FAA, the big question was funding, right? How do you make sure it's funded? Well, I took this from one of the towns. Most of it, because of the auditor bylaws that we referenced, is just funded. It's through the town budget. But I even went to the length of clarifying it here in the bylaw, where it says the town administrator shall include in the annual budget a sum of money sufficient to satisfy the estimated cost of hiring and conducting the audit as presented by the audit committee to the Board of Selectmen and the FAA. So at the end of the day, when they do their interviews for the auditor there, they have to come before you and say, okay, guys, this is what it's going to cost. And if you want us to look a little deeper into here, this is what it's going to cost. And they report to both you guys at the end of the day, you sign the contracts. Try to make it a win-win for everybody.
So, you spoke earlier about coming and get a spreadsheet. You guys shouldn't have to do that. You're right, we don't. We have a full-time professional treasurer, full-time professional accountant. That's their job. So to say you guys, that's well out of my scope as a selectman. So I'm not done, John. You also, in your bylaw and the purpose, and Rich can come up, he spoke about this last time, have access to any and all public and financial record and receipts of the town. So as Rich stated, I don't want to speak for Rich, he can come up. The way this is worded, if I pay by check for my taxes, your audit committee can come in and see my check, copy my check, my name, my address, my account number. Rich talked about having to block everything out. Not done. You talked about your audit committee. People in town, they're CPAs. You have nowhere in here, do they have to be town residents? Could it be someone that works in town? Just a CPA or a financial person? And also, you say you did some things vaguely on purpose, or however you phrased it. Sure, someone can come in and say, I want to be on your audit committee. Have financial expertise and independent from day-to-day operation of town. So just because someone's got a CPA doesn't mean they're a good one. And I'm not disparaging that group. Someone could be a lawyer doesn't mean they're a good one. You actually talked in the past about maybe a lawyer on that board. Again, does that have to be a resident or someone that just does business in the town? And this actually started, there's some other questions too I had. Talking about costs now. How can there be a cost for a volunteer audit board to come in and touch all financial, your thing, you want them touching any and all financial statements, public and financial records and receipts of the town? Why should there be a cost? They're volunteers. Most of these boards in town are volunteers. So we're gonna create a budgetary item over a committee of volunteers, similar to what we were gonna do a few years ago when you were gonna you proposed a separate independent, I think it was a Parks and Rec department that was gonna get a budget with no oversight except their own. And John, you and I have talked about this more than once. This originally started, you promised, you got up there and you said, I know, I'm paraphrasing, I know I can get the state auditor in here to do a free audit for the town. We're gonna start with the state and we'll work from there.
I said the state had multiple resources, and let's bring in the state order because they were willing to come in at no charge.
Apparently not, because we tried that. Mr. Marcy tried many times. Mr. Landry's involved, and we do have the state coming in.
Which I think is fantastic.
We have this thing keeps beeping at me, sorry, I don't know what the hell's going on. We have DLS coming in, which is a service that the state's gonna provide. And Mr. Landry brought up at the last meeting, and you weren't here, and I'm glad you're here tonight. I don't see the rush to put something before the town when we have, we as a board, we try to be responsive. We have DLS coming in, to come in and audit our practices, to come in and work with the town and make recommendations. So, again, if Rich wants to come up and address the questions, that's a big one. People reached out after that meeting. So these people, these volunteers that have there's no criteria. It's people that you have deemed, because you wrote it, subjective view, that have financial expertise and independence from the day-to-day operation of the town. So, again, I just repeat, so if a guy's a CPA in town, he can come on this committee that you're creating. If he's a non-resident, we're gonna have a non-resident, and Rich is behind you, so if you will indulge him, how are we gonna protect the confidentiality of information that people are paying when your committee, by your words, have access to any and all public financial records and receipts of the town?
Mr. Chair, prior to yielding to the treasurer, I mean, Steve's throwing out so much misinformation and questions. I really need to address it.
I'm reading the quotes right out of your article, John. Everything I read was a quote out of your article.
So you're telling me, Steve, that the town does not pay for its auditor every year?
Say that. You said you wanted to create a budget for the audit committee.
No.
Yes, that's your exact words.
No, the audit committee needs to hire an auditor. Where do I say I need to create a budget for the audit committee?
You just said...
It says the town administrator shall include in the annual budget a sum of money sufficient to satisfy the estimated cost of hiring and conducting the audit. That's to hire the auditor.
We do that
This committee is not going to cost anything. This committee does not do audits. You continue to insist that they do audits. This committee does not do audits. They hire the auditor. When the auditor does the annual audit, they're the ones that are sitting with the auditor. They're the ones that are making sure that, things are being followed according to DOR regs.
So if I misspoke, your thing calls it an audit committee. So if I assume that you meant audit, and if they're not an audit committee, what are they looking at when they have access to all the public financial? Again, I'm reading your language. Have access to any and all public and financial records, receipts of the town.
Because that's the language DOR recommends.
What are they looking
Because they're working with the auditor during the audit process. They have the auditor has the ability to hit any department in town. And because these people work with the auditor through the process, they need access to that. It's DOR recommended language in here. I changed it from any and all records to the to the public records and financial because you mentioned that concern at one of your previous selectmen's meetings. I didn't need to do that. Most of the audit committees don't have that. They have it broad like that.
It still says right here, in the warrant that I have, and the one that recently I got updated online, the language is the same. Legally empowered to have access to any and all public financial records and receipt of the town.
I added the public and financial record. Previously it said to any and all records and receipts of the town. And then you were concerned about possible personnel records in the original draft and stuff. So that's why we refined it to public and financial records.
It wasn't personnel records. Rich brought up personnel records.
Yeah.
I didn't. I brought up people paying their bills.
Yeah.
You're the way, and by the way, John, in your purpose, it does not say work with the auditor. It says highest level integrity, financial transparency, and accountability within the town, independent from the selectman and administrator to select the auditor. I'm reading your language.
To select the auditor.
I'm not making anything up, John. You said that I'm misrepresenting. I'm reading what's in front of me and on the most recent one I got online.
Yeah, so where does this volunteer committee require a single dollar for their creation or use?
You said we have to make a budgetary, now you're saying it's only to hire the auditor. So
Exactly.
So if the auditor's $15,000,
They have to go before you and the FAA and say, hey, for 15 grand, this was, right? First they have to work with the town administrator to go out to bid for it every 3 years.
well, they work independent of town administrator. Why would they go to him for?
Because he's still the chief procurement officer.
That's also for.
I mean, that's just mass general law.
That's all.
So they still, even though their mandate is every 3 years to go out, they still have to follow Mass General Law when it comes to procurement. They're not exempt from that. I'm not inferring that they are at all in this.
Are they residents or non-residents?
Well, the residents is a good catch. If we missed it, let's add it in. It was a miss on my part. An honest, that's why we have these conversations, is I'd love to nail it down. So yes, they should absolutely be residents, and if I forgot that, shame on me.
Well, again, Rich moved up, I don't know if he wants to speak, but the way you have the language, to me, it seems like, and Rich made a nice presentation at the last meeting, it looks like this committee of individuals having financial expertise and independence would have the ability to look at, again, your language, all public financial records and receipts. So that, to me, it looks like they're gonna be able to go down and say to Rich, for example, I wanna see copies of all the checks that came in for the third quarter tax bills.
Yeah.
My name, my phone number, my financial information is gonna be on there with your committee of
Well, absolutely.
individuals with financial expertise.
Yeah, and as,
You can look at my stuff, is what you're saying.
if it's a public record, now, if a financial receipt, yes, they're gonna have the ability to look at it. Now, when they look at it, their action will be either to refer it to the auditor, all right, and say, I don't know what I'm looking at here, or they could request it through the auditor. Most of this, again, this is not going to be an adversarial board. This is supposed to be a resource. And if you have the right people and you work in cooperation with them, it's a win-win for everybody.
What was that word, Mr. Johnson, hopefully? What was the word?
I've done pretty good on hope so far.
We're gonna go with
We almost
Mr.
got the highway through and the town hall. We've got 3 out of 5.
We're gonna go with Mr. Carmignani, then Mr. Landry. And then, Mr. Chairman, if you have anything.
It was my understanding that during the course of an audit, there are agents from the CPA firm we are engaged in now who will look at a copy of a check. They will go through and recreate payroll deductions. They will look at an excise bill which has personal identifiers on it. So I think at the end of the day, it's not to retain personal copies for their own use, it's to have access as it pertains to the upcoming audit. There's a whole bunch of things that are in the office that aren't necessarily public records. If there were a question on an amount paid, you'd go through and produce a redacted copy of a check. The public record is not going to be a seed for somebody's identification to be stolen, I guess is the best way to look at it. And it's the understanding that it's a handful of people looking at sensitive information rather than having thousands of residents poring over it. And the idea, as I'm understanding the budget for the auditor, this would be the committee assessing the situation, looking for an auditing firm to come up and recommending within the budgeted amount the auditor for the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 year period. I agree with Mr. Breyer. I don't think there's expenses associated with it other than ultimately hiring what this group believes to be a better auditing firm or the best auditing firm for the price and the needs of the town. That's sort of.
Can I ask a quick question, Mr. Chair? So, Rich, we discussed this last time.
Yes.
The language that I've been reading that I was told I was misrepresenting. Access to any and all public financial records and receipts of the town. Am I interpreting, in your opinion, am I interpreting that wrong? That this audit committee, if it passes, can or cannot go down to your office or make an appointment? And I'm making up an example. We want to see a copy of all the checks that you receive for payments Q3. This audit committee, are you going to be able to black out my account number, my name, my phone number?
I don't think they're involved at that granular of a level.
But if it passes, they can be. It seems to me, unless I'm missing the language, it appears to me they can. Can they go to water sewer, for example? And Scott said everything's in his office. Are they going to turn willingly turn over?
The way I understand this working is this is an additional resource to ensure that any and all questions from the previous fiscal year that might have been an issue in a management letter or a note to a financial statement be addressed for the next audit. You have the FAA who makes the budgeting recommendations. You have the Capital Improvement Committee who is sort of outlining the larger expenditures that fit the capital expenditure definition. This would just be another committee, but it would be deliberately separate so that whatever the concern is, for example, an hour ago plus, there was a question on how water rates were calculated moving forward. Finding that source information probably would be something that the audit committee would look for, or at least have the auditor go through and make the statement that the way the projected rates were calculated were reviewed by the auditing firm and considered appropriate. That's sort of how I'm viewing that.
So, one last one, Mr. Chair, then I'll be done. Under some of the duties and responsibilities, you talked about the management letter. For people that don't know what that means, every time we have an audit, we get a letter from the auditor. The good, the bad, the ugly, the recommendations. The meeting ago, a couple meetings ago, where the guy at the dump was potentially stealing $20 was addressed by the auditor years ago. No more cash. We implemented that.
Excellent example.
So in here, there's things similar to that. Report to the town findings and recommendations. Areas of operation were expanded, scope of audit. Review, make respect to financial management. I'm going through his language, or the language proposed. Rich, how long have you been the treasurer?
22 years. Started in '02.
I'm going to put you on the spot. You have a very good memory. In all the audits that you've participated in, I've been 24 years, have we ever not implemented recommendations from the auditor that you know of for financial practices? Do this, try this, through the management letter.
It's the auditor's job to go through and dig. You would be suspect of a management letter. You know, the auditors say there's nothing to report at this time. I'm sure there are some Metro West cities that finances are not a concern. It's what is that next dollar in taxation buy us? Is it worth raising that extra dollar to make sure that we get this service, as opposed to the town of Dudley hustling, trying to keep the town hall open, keep the streets safe, pick up the trash and everything else, in addition to there's bills that still need to be addressed. But getting to your specific question, if it's brought up in the management letter, usually the successive year there is a comment on it. The idea that cash at the recycling center, you know, there is a policy in hand. We have reviewed it and deem it adequate. Usually the auditors are less than vocal. It's either it meets our standards or it doesn't meet our standards. They're not an editor of the newspaper. It's this is what needs to have happen because we believe there may be a deficiency, and the deficiency has been addressed, and we're moving forward.
So whenever there's been a recommendation, we follow through with it, correct?
For most of them within our
Ability?
our ability. There's an OPEB liability that's gargantuan. You'd have to hit the like you said, the aforementioned lottery ticket to fund it. We've put funds towards it. I'll give you a good example. The idea that the OPEB liability, the actuarial study, has gone through and it has separated out the enterprise funds so that the most accurate information could be taken from the study. And it would parallel the assessment from the Worcester Regional Retirement System for their annual assessment. They've gone through and drawn out the true enterprise costs so that when figuring out the water rates, you know what your costs are for something that might be a little more subtle or sublime when it comes to its explanation.
Are you good with that?
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know, something in it too about the public records policies, compliance with state of Mass public record laws. So now the audit committee is going to be tasked with knowledge of state of Mass public record laws and other Mass general laws. I just,
Well, good, they can help producing all those records on a weekly basis.
that's not fine.
Mr. Landry?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to bring a couple things up to you and to the board. That listening to the conversations.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
About this, I want to make sure I get it right. About this audit committee. I've heard that they are to obtain an auditor, to work with an auditor. Also want to get the most qualified person, subject matter experts, and a CPA fell under that discussion. We, just to fall under that, we already have in the process for auditing a town auditor, CPA, treasurer, collector, and even DOR already. And that's how I'm going with, we have the FAA, the CIP, so many entities that are already going over the books, and they fall under the DOR, who oversees it, make sure it's correct with the CPA. That's transparent. So when it opens to state, they want the highest level of integrity, financial transparency, accountability within the town. And they're looking for the most qualified person, subject matter experts. That reads, we don't already have that right now. And that's not a good thing to be putting out there. I think we do have some pretty amazing people, highly qualified, getting the job done right now. Then, when I speak with the DOR, as I have, we've discussed these audit committees with some of the towns that have them. And what's missing out of all of this discussion, because I've been working for the state for 24 years. So I know the people that certain people are talking about. So when I talk to them and I bring this subject matter up, it's simple. When you have an audit committee for your town, there's a reason. Something wasn't working. They had to go that route. And talking with the DOR again, the people that are going to be here and running this and that are here, they use the analogy with this audit committee being put through right now. You're trying to fix something that you don't know what's broken. So how do you know what tool to use? And they're right. They're right. So to say that they recommend this for everybody, or to imply that in any way, is just untrue. And that's very irresponsible, because we don't know the necessity at this point until DOR is done. And they even said, hey, let them know, can they hold it off till the fall meeting? Be responsible, let us do our reports, our findings. You'll know exactly where the weak spots are, strong spots, what has to be corrected, what doesn't. Don't do it premature, wait, do it good. I've said that several times through several meetings. Some people are hearing it, some people choosing not to. I just want to make sure we get all the findings and reports from DOR, all their records. And that's another thing, once we do. I know Mr. Sullivan was talking about public records. That already applies right now. You can put a request for public records right now, the clerk, and get whatever you want. Any one of you can. It's not stopping you. We don't need a committee for that. All right. We don't need a committee to replace a CPA, the FAA, and not to get in the weeds unless you're in the committee, but if you're going to empower them to go ahead and get another CPA and look at the records everybody can already look at, the process we already have in place, that we don't know where the weaknesses are yet till DOR is done, that's pretty irresponsible going forward at this point. And I deal with DOR, I talk to them, and we're in the same boat. And this is what I deal with at work. Until I finish an investigation, I don't know what's gonna need to be done. That's going to the chief right now, if he's starting an investigation, saying, why don't you just do this? Just do this right now. He's gonna say, well, I haven't proven all my elements, I haven't gone through the procedures that are already in place. How can I? No, just do it, it's better. And then you're saying, well, what do you mean it's better? We have investigators, we have detectives, they've gone to school, they've done the training, certifications, so on and so forth. So it doesn't make sense to try to push this through. There's no face value, other than perhaps there's something behind it that we don't see yet. So that's where I stand, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Briar, you had your hand up?
Yeah. With all due respect, to say it's irresponsible, I think is kind of irresponsible. As Mark Twain says, it's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble, it's what you think you know for sure that ain't necessarily so that gets you in trouble. 24 years in the government, well, anyway, if you read DOR and the recommendations, and the towns like Wellesley and Nantucket, and the dozens and dozens of towns that have audit committees, they work. And it's because they do provide another layer of expertise. There was a situation not too long ago when the accountant and the treasurer were having problems reconciling some daily numbers. If I asked you today, what's your free cash? What's your revenues versus your budget? Can you answer that?
I'd ask Rich.
All right.
I'd ask the full-time treasurer that question.
Right.
All right, have the town accountant address it, not a part-time elected board of selectmen.
But you
Not fair,
complain.
John, that's not fair, and you know it.
No, but you complain privately, oh, the accountant and the treasurer just don't get along and they don't talk and you can't get accurate numbers. So what is it? Either you have accurate numbers or you don't. To have a third party rely upon it is to have a third party objectives group that you can count on as a resource is not a bad thing. It's not. And you know, with your DOR, you know, audit that's going on right now, if you read the DOR suggestion is to have the audit committees in place prior to the presentation of audit results. And that way, as a team, the town could look to see where to improve things, what to do differently, and how to make sure that there's a compliance program put forward. And then 12 months from now, you review and say, how'd you do? And they report back to the town. I mean, we're in an interesting situation here in town because we have an elected treasurer, right, who has all this responsibility, yet his budget is determined by a different board, right? So how do you know that the treasurer truly has the funds and the resources needed in order to do their job correctly? You have now you have this third-party objective board that can say, you know what, the treasurer's office needs some additional help. Or, hey, if we do this, we can do this. They're part of the team. They are not adversarial. And any business out there has an auditing company or an auditing team. If you're on the board of directors, you've got an audit committee, even amongst your board of directors. It's basic 101. It's management 101. And the only thing I'd conclude on, too, is there any way to get this article moved from being the last one to before these other citizen petitions? Because I'm a little concerned that people are going to bail when they start seeing these other ones.
I think people will stay through them all. Mr. Chairman, did you have anything on this?
Well, first ask. Anybody have any questions for John?
I do actually. So the main responsibility, like number A with a bullet, is selecting the independent town auditor.
Yep.
So among the professionals that you see on this committee, you haven't mentioned anybody who is in procurement.
No, the town administrator handles the procurement.
I understand, but if they're responsible for selecting an independent town auditor, like, wouldn't you want someone on this independent committee to also have a background in procurement so that when they're going through bids, they understand the language that they're reading through all of these RFPs?
That's a fair question. The procurement within the state is governed by the mass procurement laws, and the chief procurement officer is the town administrator. All they're doing is putting out, right, so they've talked with the various boards. It comes time, 3 years is up. Scanlon and Associates has been the town auditor for 17 years, just to let you know. I don't recall really a real big discussion about any of those renewals or anything like that. So let's just say they get hired. Next year they put it out to bid depending on when Scanlon and Associates contract ends. They work with the FAA, the Board of Selectmen, and say, okay, so it's time to look at an auditor. These are the things that are required by mass statute, okay, and that's referenced in here. Now, is there any other areas that you would like, when we put this procurement out, for us to look at? And so if water and sewer, right, so then what they do is they'll work with the town administrator, because he is the chief procurement officer, and he would be the one that actually issues the bid spec. All right, and so the procurement or the scope of services. And then once they interview, right, what they're looking for is expertise, right? They're talking the same language, you know, what kind of systems are you using, what kind of ledgers, what kind of accounting softwares, you know, when you do an audit, you know, what are you looking for? Are you looking at, you know, Chapter 30 procurement stuff? Are you looking at this? Are you looking at bid amount? You know, so they're going to get into the nitty gritty stuff that many of these guys just may not know.
But that is usually what contract specialists and procurement specialists do. They make themselves subject matter experts so that they can make recommendations on the bids that are coming in. So I feel like it is remiss to not also include someone who has a background in that, knowing that, you know, Mr. Ruda is very well versed in it and knows like kind of what the town needs. But on top of that, I'm just like, I'm curious what that overlay is, because it seems like there's a lot of overlap, specific with that being their most important responsibility.
Well, what the audit committee should be composed of resident, I will add that, individuals having financial expertise and independence from day-to-day operations of the town. At the end of the day, it's really, you know, if the Board of Selectmen says, you know, boy, this person would be a really good addition to the audit committee, or the FAA says, this person, it's broad enough for that you collectively as a board can make an educated decision and nominate who you want to the board and appoint them.
Mr. Chairman, did you have anything?
Yeah, John, would you be open to possible small changes in?
Absolutely, I've been continuing.
So in the purpose part, where it says public and financial records, would you be willing to take the word "and" out? And the only reason why I say that is because I don't want it to overlap. If it's public records, it's public records. If it overlaps into the potential of something personal, the volunteer board is not going to be under any kind of, you know, other than, you know, your regular general rules that any board is. So if something was to, in other words, you would hate to have somebody looking at some public records and say, oh my God, that guy there, he's getting a ton of overtime. And now that becomes, there's no consequence of putting that out into the ether, and you know, it becomes a liability after that. So I would probably stick public.
You know, Winchester has a confidentiality provision in their audit committee, and it was approved by the Attorney General. And our own town council pushed back because saying everything was open to the public meeting laws. All right, so I would love for somewhere down the road, maybe we look at the Winchester confidentiality provision, but to get this through as a compromise, I would have no problem at all striking the word, and I'll do that, and. Because I think over time, this will prove itself as a wonderful resource for the town and the departments.
what else did I look at? Oh, so the only other ones would be, you made some changes, but G and H. Review and make recommendations to the board. Well, hold on, let me see. Was it those two? No, H and I. Serve as a resource for town employees and residents to report suspected financial irregularities. That's another one I don't know if I would.
Yeah.
That's kind of HR again. I mean, you don't want a volunteer board getting that kind of, I don't know if you want them to have that kind of information where it can get.
Well, on a lot of the audit on a lot of the towns that have audit committees, they actually have a reporting mechanism for residents to report things right then and there on the audit committee. And then that gets forwarded to the audit committee. So again, I was just trying to mimic best practices that other towns have done. But, you know.
Yeah, I just would kind of avoid I'm not an HR specialist or anything like that, but I would kind of avoid the HR potential problems with, being a board to solve problems between employees of the town and stuff like that. So I would avoid that. Take that responsibility away from those board members so that they're not involved in something that could be legally liable if they say something. So.
Yeah.
And the only other concern I had was, so if the audit committee determines that they're going to have certain types of audits.
After speaking with the FAA and selectmen, right, you say, this is what we want the audit to encompass, right?
So,
they interview.
So now the audit committee recommends a particular, ABC CPA firm to do this, this, and this. We get a price from them. Are the selectmen bound by that price?
Well, they'd be working with our chief procurement officer, and so it depends on how the bid is set up, right? I mean, sometimes there are master price agreements in place where you don't even have to go out to bid and just get a price and you can just go. I would say probably your best bet, because having dealt with master price agreements for over 30 years, you don't necessarily get the best price. And so sometimes actually putting it out to bid, you get a better price than what's on an MPA, even though there's most favored nation clauses, which really aren't most favored nation. They always kind of squeeze them.
So what would the authority be in the audit committee when it comes to the money?
Well, they would have. No, they don't have any authority to spend money.
So
all they have the authority to do is to recommend to the Board of Selectmen and the FAA of who the auditor should be and what the cost would be.
So how we read the bottom line here, the town administrator shall include in the annual budget a sum of money sufficient to satisfy the estimated cost of hiring and conducting an audit. So how do we word that so that it doesn't sound like an audit committee comes in and says, well, we're gonna do this, this, and this. They get a price of $100,000 from the CPA to do all this stuff. How do we word it so it's not binding, so that the Board of Selectmen and the FAA actually make a recommendation on the budget, so it's not binding?
You don't have to, because our procurement laws don't make anything binding, right? The only thing that's binding is what the contract that the Board of Selectmen signed with the town administrator. So you don't even have to. It's already inferred in the law. And this language is actually taken, I should have put the exact town, I don't know if it was like Weymouth or something. I took this from another town exactly because I knew you were concerned. It's mostly inferred by referencing these other Mass General Law chapters that is going to be funded.
Okay. So if the audit committee recommends not just a standard normal DOR type of audit that we have, recommends a little more in-depth audit.
At the end of the day, it's going to be...
If that cost is another 10 grand, it's not bound.
No, it's going to be, you got to put it in the budget.
Right, okay. So
and remember, the process today is that you have...
It still goes through, so if we have a disagreement, so let's go down the road 10 years from now, we have a whole, a different group of people as part of this, and they determine they're going to audit, this, and this, or make a recommendation. They go out, they recommend somebody to do it. Once that amount of money is not going to be bound by the town.
Yeah, they don't have that power.
So the FAA and your selectmen still have the power to make recommendations on the budget. It
Yeah.
won't be forced onto the,
Yeah, as it's clearly stated here, this does not empower them to actually hire. All they can do is recommend the scope of an audit or areas to look at.
so it's basically set up similar to the capital improvement committee. We don't have a budget on capital improvement. We look at what's needed and vote on that as a recommendation. So this is how you want this is set up as a recommendation.
Yeah, so for instance, today, how do you fund the auditor? Right, the Board of Selectmen are the only ones that are involved in that decision. There's no involvement from the FAA, right? So here you'd have a representative, right? They'd have a representative, and then, the moderator has one, and so you have this public discussion, you have these public interviews, you can watch the whole process because they're subject to the public, open meeting laws, and you can see. I would strongly encourage, just like, people would attend the Ag Commission meetings or the Economic Development. The more the merrier, right? The more input, the better.
So the process now, if this passes, the process of appointing, what process are you suggesting that we appoint? Because
well, you'd have one.
we're going to have
You'd set that up yourselves.
Time frame of an appointment, because we don't want to. I know a lot of the committees in town, the first person that raises their hand is appointed, because we don't have a lot of volunteers for these committees. Every committee is empty, well, half empty anyway. So the process, we'd have to have a date of which you'd have to have your request to be on the committee. So if we have 3 or 4, we don't want to just appoint the first person that says, hey, I know how to add 2 + 2, and all of a sudden you're on the committee.
Yeah, I didn't put an actual deadline in here or time frame. Ideally, it'd be great to have it in place for July 1, right? Start of the fiscal year. But, you want to make sure you get the right people. And again, I'm willing to help proactively recruit volunteers, that are CPAs and attorneys and got experience, and get them before your board so that you can hopefully nominate the right people.
Anybody have any questions for John?
But I'd really love to get, a positive, unanimous vote in support of this. I just don't see the harm. And to what, Mark was saying, especially with the DOR audit come on, what a wonderful opportunity this is to have, right, yourselves and have this new audit committee sitting in the same rooms and seeing this and working as a team to figure out, okay, you guys are busy running the town audit committee. You're going to own this, and this, right? And maybe there is nothing to own or look into.
Oh, I'm gonna point out the harm in a minute.
Okay.
Mr. Sullivan?
2 questions and a comment.
Sure.
To the chairman of the FAA. You were a signatory of the citizens petition. Do you feel like we need an audit committee? Is that why you signed it?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think if this is a committee that makes recommendations, I believe that more volunteers looking into more things helps us out on FAA. I don't think it harms in any way.
So it shouldn't be a subcommittee of the FAA then?
It could be.
It doesn't say that.
No, but it could be. I believe I talked to John about this, right?
Yeah, and I looked, I couldn't find a single town.
I just want to get it. Mike signed it, and he's our FAA chair. I wanted people to know Mike signed it, and I wanted his opinion. So, John, my question to you, and I serve with you, I respect you, and please don't take offense at this. You're doing an audit committee. I was copied on an email. You're working with a sewer commissioner and a former member of the planning board to work on driveway standards in town.
Yeah.
And we appreciate volunteerism, we really do. But when you're gonna get that deep into the weeds and the technicality, it'd be nice if you were accountable to more than just the people that watch you at home. Like, you're not an elected official, you're not an appointed official, you don't serve on any committee. We already had people say to us, ubiquitous us, I'm gonna check with John Breyer first. You're a private citizen, and you've already made it clear to me that your next, I don't think even your next one, you made it clear to me that in the fall, you're gonna come back at the town to restore the personnel board, which went away when the town administrative bylaw was passed previous to Mr. Ruda being the town administrator. It was not anything Mr. Ruda did. We had a personnel board function for a lot of years. And as we talk about moving forward, you need checks and balances. For people out there that like to criticize and not hear the good stuff, we didn't even have family leave as an official policy of the town when we had a personnel board that you want to bring back until Mr. Ruda took over. That town meeting, the town administrator bylaw streamlined the HR responsibility. We now have an assistant town administrator that handles our HR responsibilities under Mr. Ruda's auspices. And again, private citizen, like I said, you're working on a driveway standard now. You've already made it clear you're coming back for the personnel bylaw. Who knows what's in between? And I just want to be clear to the people at home, that handout you gave us about audit committees, which I appreciate.
Yep, 1998.
26 years ago.
Yep, that's how long they've been recommending it, for 26 years straight.
Well, you made a comment before about 24 years at the state. When Mark said something, you kind of like snickered and said something. You think maybe the opinion might have changed in 26 years? Not saying they don't recommend them anymore. 26 years ago, and I looked online when we were talking, and I can find 14 towns that have audit committees in some form of, haven't met in several years to the current. Some that have 5 members, a possibility, they only have 3. Every town you named, and I'm going to pick on them, with the possible exception of Winchendon, all extremely wealthy. I would challenge you, if you're going to give all the information, to go to those towns and look at the size of their budget, that maybe they do need an audit committee to help. Because I guarantee you, every one of those towns that you named, or that I can find for you, Hingham, Brookline, Nantucket, budgets are probably far excess of what we have. So they probably need the extra oversight. And I would hope that if you said something about the accountant and the treasurer, and yes, there's probably been some issues because we had problems with VEDA. Mark Landry was working on VEDA. I would hope that our elected treasurer collector and our appointed accountant, who've both been in their position for a long time, are working through, or can work through, or have worked through any potential issues. But I just want to get that out there, John. You're in, like I said, I served with you 24 years ago. Passionate guy. People, I'm telling you, people have come to Michelle and said, I'm gonna check with John Breyer first. You're not even a town official, John, and I appreciate your volunteerism.
I've got 30 years involved in national, state, and local government.
At the same time as you got this copy, 26 years ago. Something might have changed.
I served as chairman of the Economic Development Committee to 2019, 2020. I was an alternate on the planning board since. My cause in life is to bring power to the people, to bring light to darkness, and to expose people. And what people say publicly is often very different than what they do and how they vote privately. And all I try to do is show people how to seek the truth and how to find the truth. And I'm willing to sit down with anybody and break bread with anybody and talk about anything. And if someone is looking, or has an issue, and needs to understand how to navigate the federal, the state, or the town government, I'm going to break bread with them, and I'm going to teach them how to do it. And so I have no intention to run for office, and I've said that before. So what I do here is because I love my town. And I consider most of you up there friends. And I don't hold my friends to lower standards. I hold my friends to higher standards, because you're capable of so much more. And so this is the highest standard. This is an audit committee. This is saying, you know what, we have nothing to hide. Let's bring in a group of subject matter experts and let them do the due diligence so that we can manage the affairs of the town. You don't want to be balancing balance sheets and looking at ledgers. You don't have time for that. You don't have the background or expertise for that. Let someone else do it. Just like the Economic Development Committee, right? Let them concentrate on giving you the proposals and then take their input. We have experts from the Ag Commission. They're the ones that should be informing and you should be relying upon for anything farming or agricultural related.
But they report to us, they work for us. Your committee is explicitly...
is independent.
And you said objective, and now you're saying, you not only do you want us to appoint someone to your committee, that you're proposing...
It's not my committee, it's the town's audit committee.
You're proposing, your committee, you're proposing with 9 other people that signed that petition. Now you're saying the petitioner is gonna sit down and help the people that are gonna be independent from us, him, them, but you, who are proposing the committee, is gonna sit down with these people now and give them the guidance and the knowledge, and you said a bunch of other things.
Oh, yeah.
To help them do a better job, but they're gonna be objective, and they're not gonna be under the influence of selectmen or FAA or treasurer or accountant, but you're gonna guide them to get to the conclusion or to the what you,
No.
yes, because you're gonna get them on that committee, and you're gonna get them with their special skills.
It's like I did with the Ag Commission. Okay, this is how you take minutes. This is, right? You got to record your meetings. These are the things that you need to do. You hold a public hearing. There's just the basics 101 that I'm willing to do. I don't have to do it, but I'm willing to do that to help get this committee off the ground. I'm willing to help you find volunteers. You're always complaining you can't find volunteers.
But I would hope a lawyer and a CPA would know how to take minutes and do things the right way, because they're gonna need, according to your proposal, they're gonna need to know and implement Mass General laws. You quote multiple times.
Exactly.
But they're not gonna know how to collect minutes.
When you first joined the planning board with me, did you know how to do that? No, you learn,
And it was a 5-member board that had a planner.
right?
It was a 5-member board that had a planner.
And the nice thing, since we were served together, is now there are trainings, conflict of interest, and state trainings on public records. Those things weren't available when we were there. So there are a bunch of things in place where, you know, Michelle can help coach them, or Lori. I mean, Laura was a tremendous help for us when she was town clerk, helping us navigate how do you become a good official.
Well, there was conflict of interest. I think you're kind of glossing over. There were things we had to do. We didn't just go willy-nilly. But anyway,
It's a little bit more intense today.
You good?
Sorry.
I'm gonna go watch the Bruins.
I like the spirit of it, but I want to gut this. I really do. I'm
Fair
going to
enough.
start here. Mass DLS website. You'd said DOR recommends this. Well, the DLS recommends this as well. Let me read it. Communities with a history of substantial audit findings, whether in number or severity, should consider establishing an audit committee. To my knowledge, we haven't had a substantial audit finding. Not since I've been here. When that audit comes, that's the first thing I go to. First thing I go to is that opinion piece.
What about the single audit from this year with the coronavirus funds? Has that been resolved? Has that been rectified?
Has it?
We were found deficient.
That was a small error that was, like an accounting error that was rectified immediately.
That was,
But if you don't know what it is, it comes across as something that gets brought up at a public meeting to justify an audit committee.
it wasn't, what he said, there's nothing missing. Was it a delayed submission?
It was a new form and it's electronic filing, and the town accountant entered the wrong number on the wrong line. And it took 60 days to get the US Treasury to get their tech services on so that she could reverse the form and fix it. It was handled through the auditor immediately. It was not, it was in no way anything that would,
Got it.
Right, and I was part of that with Mr. Ruda. Deficient's a strong word. It was a transposition error on
Well,
the
they
form.
use terms like that, so if you don't know what the term is, a deficiency like that,
Right.
it sounds ominous, but it
I
was
understand.
literally, if you were filing your taxes online, you put something in the wrong line. That's it.
And I'll reiterate, I think it should be a part of the FAA. We've got 4 people here.
Out of 9.
I have not.
And if people are concerned about the budget, if people are concerned about where money's going, where it's coming from, what we're spending, that's where it's done. That's where I got my start long enough, quite about 12 years ago, there. That's where it happens. These people are unsung heroes, whatever you want to call them. They go through a lot of, probably more work than there is now for me, to be honest with you. And I think we need more people like them looking at this. Could you imagine if we had 3 Mike Mayotts? And that'd be great. I mean,
Tremendous
that.
asset to the
That's
town.
in jail.
But I'm serious. Have it be a subcommittee.
I couldn't find a single example anywhere where it was actually part of the FAA. I looked because Mike asked me to look.
You know what? We're different here in Dudley. Let's be different. Another piece. whether they're credentialed professionals, procurement specialists, an attorney, whatever. I have a problem with people going through personal identifiable information without some sort of a scan. I get my fingerprints done every year. I go back 10 years. I get a thorough examination every year. I don't think that's any different. Everywhere you see, people are getting their identities stolen, people are getting scammed, especially the elderly, really. And I'm not saying anyone would be like that, but I mean, I look like a nice guy, but I still get the scan. And if someone was looking at personally identifiable information, meaning whether it's bank account numbers, maybe social security, date of birth, and personal, I don't know. They might come across something maybe that's not the intention and they come across it by accident. I don't know.
So
I would want minimum a query check, minimum.
So if we do the language as Mike suggested, where we strike the "and," so it's public financial records, and then what if we go, members cannot be existing elected or appointed officials or current employees of the town and must pass a police background check? A query check. Okay, so, and pass a query check.
Is there different levels of query checks? I'm never on that end.
I can't do a background check unless you're hired by the police department.
Okay.
Okay.
But it to be a query check done by Michelle.
Okay.
But there's also administrative court, is that what it's called? There's different ones you can do that he doesn't have to
I do
do.
only in Massachusetts.
Right.
But you could be a felon and
You could be a felon in Connecticut.
I don't care.
Wouldn't show up.
But I'll add and pass a query check. So I think if you do a Mike's change where it's not public and financial, where it's just simply public financial records and receipts of the town, right? So there goes the access to the confidentiality or the confidential records, and then passing the query check. And you would think if they're lawyers and CPAs that they're not going to be identities thieves, but better safe than sorry. I'm with you.
You'd be surprised. You never know. You just never know. But frankly, I don't care if it's never been done anymore. I would want it to be a subcommittee of the FAA. I really would. Because if we want financial minds in town, if we're looking for volunteers, how long is it going to take to be on an audit committee? Negligible. How long does this take? Certain times of the year, not negligible, but most of the year, negligible. There it is. That's what I think. I think you get a CPA, a tax attorney, certified management accountant, whatever you got, procurement specialist, whatever you got. Have them sit on the FAA as well. Don't preclude them from that. I would mandate it, but that's me. We're having a conversation,
Yep,
John.
exactly.
We're breaking
Yep.
bread.
What about residency clause?
Yeah, he already mentioned that. Residence. He's going to add that.
Yeah, that was just a mistake on my part. Not putting the
You
residents
know what?
in
We'll
there.
see what the residents say. Maybe they'll tell us to go pound sand. Maybe they'll want something different. Maybe we'll have 3 amendments. We don't know. Anyone, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, just to close that out, I know earlier I was talking about Department of Revenue in my discussions. They stated when there's an audit committee for a town, there's a reason. Several people pointed that out, different towns, why they would need it. And I pointed out that DOR doesn't believe at this time that we would have a reason for one, and to wait and hold this off till the fall meeting when their reports and all the facts are out. And I said to have this done prior to that would be irresponsible. And then I had the individual come up and say, I was irresponsible for saying that. Just want to make it clear, grow up. I'm not attacking any individual saying they are responsible. I said the action was. So don't come here like a child and say I'm irresponsible because I said something. That if that's your best defense against everything I said, I now know why you want to push your article ahead of others. I'd be concerned of it getting voted through too.
Oh, I have confidence in the citizens of
That's
Dudley.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand all the concerns that are out there that you brought up, but those concerns, I'm not really all that concerned about some of those. If this committee is just a committee that makes recommendations, the Board of Selectmen, you guys are the arbiters of what takes place. It's your decision what makes place. So whether you got an FAA making a recommendation to you on a budget, you have an audit committee saying, you know, we like this auditor, we might want to audit this, you're still making the decision. So there's the only power here is you're going to have potentially 3 more people basically looking at some financial numbers. If they don't have the power to, if they're public records, then we don't have to worry about any of the personal stuff. If they don't have those 2 clauses at the end there, the HR type clauses of being mediators and stuff, then really it is just three experienced people looking at some public financial records and making a recommendation.
So it's an advisory committee?
It's an advisory, that's how I see it, that's how it should be, is an advisory committee to you, to the FAA, and like I said, whether it's a subcommittee of FAA or a completely separate board in which we can appoint somebody to the board, I don't think there's any harm in that.
Mr. Bryan, could you add audit advisory committee? Could you add the word advisory in between audit and committee? And I think if you do that, and I think if you add they're limited to public records, which would mean no personally identifiable information.
Yeah, you don't want a volunteer board getting involved in stuff that could violate their personal law. So, but
I see no reason why we can't make those changes.
Yeah.
But
Some
your
of the
question?
Mr. Chairman, some of the towns you mentioned, John, actually, that's what they call it. I was looking that up.
The audit advisory?
Yeah, might be appropriate.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm just looking throughout the article. Nope, I don't think there's any harm in that at all.
Good. Did we break enough bread?
Excuse me?
Did we break enough bread? I just want to move on to the next thing. Thank you. I think everyone's here for departmental communication later on.
is that all right, just being advisory?
Okay, so we're going to close the public hearing, it looks like.
Let them help us.
We're gonna close the public hearing at 9:30.
Right.
Excuse me? What were you going to speak about?
Budget issue that I found.
Okay, please.
Hi, sorry for the 11th minute stuff here. So I was going through this multiple page spreadsheet. I have a question regarding the Board of Health. So we have the health agent salary at $80,000, plus we also have a line item for $3,000 as the animal inspector, and that's actually part of the
I'm gonna
job.
stop you right there. We're gonna be talking about that later on.
I just was wondering why it was in the budget.
We're gonna talk about that
Okay.
later on. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. As I said, the public hearing is closed at 9:37.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Like after close.
So I believe you have to
Yeah,
adjourn
so
your meeting?
entertain a motion to close the public hearing for FAA?
Oh, wait, we didn't, we've got a, did you go into a public
With you guys
hearing?
jointly, so we can vote all together if you want to.
Okay, you're gonna vote separate from us?
From here on
You're
the
gonna vote
articles?
separately, FAA votes on recommendation of fiscal year 25 budget.
Yeah.
Article of town meeting. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so, we need some motions here. So we're gonna go over the financial articles, so. Article 1 and Article 2 are general housekeeping articles. Is there a motion for either one of those?
Motion to approve the articles is written.
Okay,
Can I say that?
good.
Second.
We get a second. Any discussion on Article 1 and Article 2? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Article 3 is the budget. Is there any questions on the budget? John, what was the total? Which
John, you asking?
The full budget with the water and sewer?
Sorry, I've been kind of in the corner here.
I don't. 29,1.
It should be right on the total
29,
budget should be
172.
Article 3. Yeah.
29,172, 373.
Yeah, is that what it says in there?
29,172, 373.
All right, does anybody want to make a motion on the 2025 budget for $29,172,373?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the article for the town budget of, what did we say, 29,172,373.
Do we have a second? Okay, any discussion on the budget?
Not tonight.
Not tonight.
But I will review everything.
Okay.
And I might
There
take
is,
notes later.
obviously, this budget does include the assessment from the school. There is the possibility as we go forward, they can still come down on that, right, John, I believe? As we go?
As we go, yeah.
Even past the May town meeting.
Well, anything can happen, they can vote up until town meeting, and
Even if we get past town meeting, we can adjust it. If there was some better numbers coming out of the Senate.
well, once I think it's voted at the top end of the year, they bill us quarterly, so. I think we own it on May 20th. I mean, I don't think it's ever been done in history, but we could always hope for the best, right? And if they vote it, and they wanted to reduce it after May 20th?
Well, we
Guess
did
we
get
take
their
another
word
look
that
at
if
it.
there
Maybe
was
Rich would know
additional
better as
numbers,
to how
that they
that
would
works.
reduce their assessment
Yeah.
at our last meeting. So, all right. So, okay, is there any other discussion on the budget? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Article 4 was the revolving funds. You want to make a motion on the revolving funds?
I'll make a motion to approve the article as written.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Article 5 is the Water Sewer Commissioners, $300,000 for the payments of the 2022, 2023 true-ups. Anybody want to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the article as written.
Okay, any second?
I second.
All right, any discussion? I think we've had enough discussion on that. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Article 6 is the pay an unpaid bill for the Water and Sewer Department, $4,380. Do we have a motion on that one?
Make a motion to approve Article 6 as written.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Article 7 is for the treasurer collector from free cash to pay the Boston Mutual insurance bill. It's overdue for $10,382.25. Is there a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion to approve the article as written.
All right,
Second.
we get a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, approved. Article 8 is the police vehicle, $54,596 from free cash. Do I have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the article as written.
Okay,
I second.
second, okay. Any discussion? No? Okay.
That's less
same.
than the original amount.
I know. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Treasurer and collector, this is a transfer from free cash for $4,143, and $3,566 for the treasurer and the town clerk's salary.
I make a motion to approve Article 9 as written.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Do we know, like, what the percentage of these increases are?
Yeah, they should be in the,
I don't think these people, necessarily have a high salary.
No, they don't.
But if it's a big percentage, then
it's small percentage-wise. John, you have that offhand?
For the, which?
Treasurer and,
Off the top of my head, I don't have it.
it's, well, we can do it, it's one treasurer and collector salary, 103,577. Proposed is 107,720, so we just do the,
19 people, that's 20,000.
No, Article 9, I think.
do you want to do the math before we?
Percent raise for the treasurer.
Oh,
For the treasurer class.
So treasurer would be,
You might know it off the top of his head. Rich.
Clerk.
%3. So we got? 4.
Oh, I was hitting up the town clerk
Oh, okay.
change. Sorry.
They get along good. Sully's place.
Going up to my number here. It's already 10 o'clock. I'm missing the whole game. What'd you
Yeah,
get?
looks like it's about 3%.
3%?
For both.
Yep.
It's kind of on par with the rest of the raises.
So I guess my question is, why are people getting 3% raises when we have like the Prop 2.5? It seems high. I worked in private industry for forever. And I can't remember the last time anybody got
Got a
more than.
3% raise?
Yeah, 1.5 to 2.5 maximum. So
Do we know what we didn't authorize raises prior, correct? Like, it's been a while between last year and this year.
I think, like, so how much was it we budgeted last year? You
So
remember?
outside of collective bargaining agreements, which are generally negotiated anywhere from 2 to 3%, depending on the year and the other terms that go along with it, we create a merit pool for non-union staff, who generally, based on merit, based on their reviews, will get anywhere between 2 and 3%. 2 is meets expectations. A 3 would be closer to exceeds expectations, and if you fall below meeting expectations, you get less than 2. And you take into account, like inflation right now is certainly north of 3% as it stands right now. And other factors like employee retention and the ability to recruit people. And we did a market-based salary study not too long ago that showed where Dudley stood in terms of the surrounding towns for the exact same positions.
Yeah, he's
We will way
but
way
it's the
below.
same thing.
Way below for our ability to attract and retain staff. We were losing them left and right. When I came in 2019, we had an employee working in this town hall for $14 an hour, which is, that was only not even 5 years ago. So we had a grant-funded independent salary study. They came in, they did their review, they made recommendations, and over the course of the last 5 years, we've gradually brought people up using what we have available, what's appropriate at town meeting to get them closer to the market rate. And right now, we're in the market, but we're at the bottom of the market level. But at least now we're we're marketable in terms of getting employees and retaining them, so.
That's my only discussion.
Okay. Any other discussion on that article? All right, seeing none, we'll call a vote. All in favor of Article 9, as written?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? All right, then you kind of alluded on this next one. Article 10 is the employee merit pool, $20,071. Does anybody have a motion on this one?
A motion to approve Article 10 as written.
All right. Second, we get a second. Any discussion on the merit pool? All right, this is coming from free cash. Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approved. Article 11 is the inspections, the dam, regulatory inspections for $30,304 from free cash.
I make a motion to approve Article 11 as written.
Okay. We have a second. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, Article 12, what do you want to do with this one? And defer to the planning board? Okay, so I'll make it, I'm going to defer Article 12 to the planning board.
Yep, okay.
I need a vote on it, deferral? All right. So, anybody want to make a motion on deferral for the Article 12 to the planning board?
I make a motion to defer approval of Article 12 to the planning board.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Article 12 will be deferred. Article 13 is rail trail, acquisition of the land.
What do you want?
What do you want to do here? It's $100 from free cash. We might as well make a motion.
I make a motion to approve Article 13 as written.
Okay,
Second.
we have a second. Yeah. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Article 14 is the water easement. It's just a easement right. I don't think that has any financial bearing on us. Does anybody do with this?
Pass it to the planning board. Or defer to the planning board.
Okay, so we have a motion to defer to the selectmen. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Article 15, Historical Commission for the renaming of the property. What do you want to do with this?
Make a motion to defer Article 15 for approval to the Dudley Historical Commission.
Okay,
Second.
second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Article 16 is the solicitor's bylaw from the police department.
You just make a recommendation to refer the article to the police
I don't know.
department?
What was your, what do you want to defer to the?
The select board, I'm not sure who we
Like,
refer to. You,
probably the select board.
please?
Oh, probably.
Article 16.
Solicitor's bylaw?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll defer to the selectmen.
That's 16,
Defer
right?
to the selectmen.
Yeah.
No, the
No, police department.
police
Police
department.
department. Defer it to the police department.
Okay. All right,
Let's make them right.
deferring Article 16 to the police department. All right, is there a second?
Second.
All, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. And then Article 17 is also the police department. We want to make a motion on this?
I make a motion to defer Article 17 to the police department.
A second? Any discussion? No? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So I'm gonna just call for a motion on, if anybody wants any one of these pulled out, Articles 18 through 23. just pull it out, just let me know. But on Articles 18 through 23, does anybody want to make a motion? Again, typically, we do not make motions on citizens petitions, but you're welcome to change.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to defer Articles 18 to 23 to the citizen petitioner.
Okay.
A second.
Any discussion? No? Okay, and then we have the final one is Article 24. Again, this is a citizen's petition, but it does involve finance because it's an FAA, will be an FAA appointment, so I think it might be appropriate to make a recommendation on this.
So can I make a motion to refer Article 24 to the citizen?
You
petition?
can. Is there a second to do that?
Second.
All right.
Mr. Finance Chair, Mr. Chair, can I ask him a question?
You can ask him a question, Mr.
So
Sullivan.
are you folks referring the article as presented? Are you gonna wait till it's supposed amended? Mr. Breyer's indicated he's gonna change it, so if you folks vote as presented, it's gonna be different than what he puts on the town meeting floor. Well, let me rephrase that. He's indicated it's going to be different.
Right.
We don't know if it's going to be different. So if you folks voted tonight, you're voting as presented, not as potential amendments.
So how can we vote on it without the changes in it?
We can do it on,
Pat,
we
like
can do it at
town meeting.
town meeting if you want. If you
Can
want
do
to
it
make a
at town
recommendation,
meeting,
town
just
meeting.
before in your meeting.
Pass it over for
So-
further information, or you?
You can
motion
withdraw
could
it
be-
if you want, Ann, and we can,
So I can withdraw that and we can make a recommendation. Go ahead.
And yeah, no, I was just gonna say, one of the other articles, we're getting different language that isn't going to be printed in the warrant, correct? Like, we decided that they're just going to potentially present, I wrote it down and I don't know where it went. They'll present new verbiage at town meeting and present that as the amended language, and that would be okay.
That was the driveways one.
The driveways,
Right.
okay. So
I didn't catch that one.
I
if
don't
we
think you
were
voted
to,
on that, did you?
Yeah, they did.
if we were to approve this the way that it's written, and the petitioner were to present new language on the floor, he would just withdraw this and then
You folks
potentially.
would have to be, you would have to
You'd have
get up
to.
with your own, a new opinion. You'd have to go up and say, we didn't, it wasn't changed as we were told, or whatever, you know what I mean? So the finance board, you can poll yourself individually if you want, we're not in favor of it. I'll go back to that article and just say, same with this one, you can say we're giving approval pending the changes that were discussed tonight. And then if we go to town meeting, there's no changes, you can do your meeting before and say, we rescind our approval of 24 because there was no changes, as promised.
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, or you could just defer to the petitioner like you did before.
Right, but if they have to make a recommendation, they're gonna be making a recommendation based on what's in front of them, not what's been promised.
And defer to the petitioner.
Yeah, because if we deferred to the planning board, sorry if I'm speaking out of turn, but if we deferred to the planning board for the driveways and they're planning on changing, like, we don't have to do a new decision at that point because we've already deferred to planning. So if we defer to,
Just back to the petitioner,
Yeah.
then they can make the change. That's kind of the same thing.
Not our approval, it's just, we understand is the
All right,
petitioner.
I just know generally we get, you guys do the same thing we do, you recommend, you'll get up and say, FAA recommends approval 4-0.
and the only reason why I brought up is because we are in the article itself. Like I say, we usually don't make recommendations, but because we have an appointment, that's why I brought it up.
Oh, then definitely.
Discussion, so.
Chairman, definitely, Mr. Chairman, you should definitely approve away.
Especially since you signed it.
I didn't make the motion. So,
So do I reword what I already said or put the motion back up?
you can also defer to the petitioner, and if we decide we see language on
I'm
the
gonna
night, we
defer
can
Article
then make
24
a,
to
we
the
can make a
petitioner.
recommendation at that point, you know, so.
I left you with the hard one, Ann, sorry. Yeah, second?
Okay. Is there any discussion?
So we get to give our opinion now at the town meeting,
Yeah, we're
assuming
gonna,
that he revises.
we're gonna
the
have a,
language
we're
and
gonna have a,
then
we meet like normal,
Okay.
as long as it's posted, right? We meet like normal, we'll have, we'll review our articles, and if we want to change our recommendation, we change our recommendation at that point. So if we see any changes that are appropriate, then we can make our decision then. Okay? Okay, so, all in favor of the deferred petitioner?
Aye.
All right, aye,
All done?
all done.
Great. Believe the Board of Selectmen, we're going to do ours the day of the town meeting in light of.
But you need to just approve the posting, vote to approve.
We need to
posting.
approve the posting now. Thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, posting approved. So next, the FAA Chair adjourns the FAA meeting, and then, Mr. Mayor, you have the capital improvement plan for fiscal year '25.
So, call for a motion to end our meeting. Anybody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to end a meeting. Okay, meeting.
Second.
Adjourn.
Nice.
All in favor to
Aye.
adjourn? Aye, okay. Well, thank you. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Can we stay for this animal?
You can, yeah, you can stay for anything you want. We still have,
I think this is the latest one.
this is the,
Music for the dark. With my confidence.
I don't want to say it yet. Okay. Bye, everybody.
You think I've done it in the morning room while we're doing it? Yeah. Probably. Thank you. I'll be right back. Just take it.
Cool, I can scan it tomorrow night.
Huh? You want me to go? All right. Well, I'd say thank you, Mr. Chairman, that he's gone. Just an update from Capital Improvement Committee. We had 3 updates to Capital Improvement Plan. We met on March 11th, voted the following adjustments. We added a police admin vehicle to this year. It's a 2023 Ford Explorer with the package that the police chief had submitted to us. It's going to be paid for with free cash. We moved that from originally we were going to use capital improvement stabilization, but we moved to free cash on that. The total vehicle amount was $54,596. I think we approved up to $60,000, so chief did save a little bit of money there. We also upgraded, there was an existing police cruiser that was already voted for on a debt exclusion. This is the final one. It was approved at the time for $60,000, however, prices have gone up significantly for these cars. So we approved it at, I believe it was 70. Did we approve it at 72, John?
Just 72 or 74.
72. Total price came in at 71,334. The funding of this is, we're gonna have to look at transfers, end of the year transfers for this, to come up with the difference, so hopefully we'll be all set with that. The other thing that was approved on the capital plan was some renovations that were proposed in the senior center. If the town was to hire somebody to do all that work, we had to get a bid on that, so the bid on that was approved up to $40,000. However, there's a different path going forward with private, done by the Women's Club, is gonna be looking at some private.
Right.
So, through grant money, so that price would probably be a lot lower than that, so. But that is added to the capital plan. Going forward, I'm gonna be contacting the department heads to update our 5-year capital plan, so you guys have better look at what's coming up over the 5 years. John, did we get our spreadsheet done yet, or?
You know what, I had to tell her to give it to me tomorrow because trying to get everything together for tonight, we were just, but it should be ready by you'll have it tomorrow.
And then we'll update the 5-year capital plan.
Okay.
All right? Thank you.
All set?
All set.
Excellent.
So we need to have the board, Mr. Chairman, vote to accept the FY25 capital plan that the chair of the CIP just went through. CIC just went through.
Excellent. Is there a,
Should be a memo in your folder.
I'm on CIP, do I abstain or vote?
Good question. I think
I always do.
you could always abstain.
I think I voted. I go the safe route.
Yeah.
for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the capital improvements updated FY 25 plan.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Further discussion, Mr. Chairman, because the Capital Improvement Committee requires a member of the Board of Selectmen to be on it and serve on it. You can vote. We've done that in the past. There should be no problem.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Okay.
Abstain anyway.
302. I'm going to abstain as I was having office hours.
Which is gonna love that.
All right, next on the agenda, resignation, Police Chief, retirement of Sergeant Paul Sepatelli, and request to post vacancy in Police Department. Board of Selectmen vote to accept resignation, post vacancies, or take any other action relative thereto. Chief?
On April 20th, I got an email from, while I was on vacation, from Sergeant Sepatelli that he received an offer from a different career that he's moving on. And he couldn't pass that along off. So he gave me a 2-week notice. I was very saddened to receive that notice. Sergeant Sepatelli worked for the police department for over 26 years. He was there when I first started. He helped me through the midnight shift, got me through my young career. He was the instructor for the department for taser, defensive tactics, served pretty much most of his career on the midnight shift. He's going to be greatly missed. His last official shift was last week, but he's got some personal time that he's burning off. But I just want to have the board reach out, maybe send him a letter and gratitude for his 26 years. I worked with him closely, and we had a lot of calls that probably a lot of people wouldn't want to be on, but we handled it for 26 years. He's dedicated himself away from his family, his weekends, holidays, and again, for 26 years, he was pretty much assigned to one of the toughest shifts, the midnight shift. I think it plays a huge role on your body, your family life, and everything else. So he's going to be greatly missed. So I'm asking the board to accept his resignation and also appoint him as the retired reserve officer, so that way he can still maybe do a couple of details. He's still certified as a police officer, but appoint him as the retired reserve officer. And ultimately also declare an opening so I can start trying to fill that position as soon as possible.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan?
I think we should keep it separate, so I'll make a motion that we accept with regret Paul Sepatelli's retirement, resignation from the Dudley Police Force.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan?
make a motion that through you, or Police Chief or Town Administrator, that on behalf of the board, we send him an official letter thanking him for his service to the town. You can sign on our behalf, or we can sign as a group, and generally have the chairman, but publicly thanking him for his service.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, can we also, not in a motion, I don't think, ask the police chief if Sergeant Sepatelli is willing to come forward at a future meeting, even if he's not employed? We can thank him in public and maybe some people from the public, if he's interested.
I can ask him. His retirement party is actually tonight, so I was kind of hoping the meeting would get out early, but obviously it didn't happen. But I would ask the board to appoint him as a reserve officer and then declare a full-time opening for a police officer, not a sergeant, just a police officer position for the time being.
Chair, I make a motion to appoint him as a reserve officer.
Second. Reserve retired, is that what it's officially called?
It's a retired reserve officer, so he still has
Reserve
all police
officer.
powers.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan.
declare a vacancy in the police department and start the process to hire a full-time officer.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
One more, Chief. Mr. Chair, I don't know if it's a motion or just instruction, have the police chief work with the town administrator for a process to fill that sergeant's vacancy. Maybe not a motion, just a task.
Meaning to investigate next steps.
Oh, yeah, come forward and say, here's my process, and we'll.
I have some recommendations, but I think that wouldn't take effect until probably July.
Yeah, just you work with him and come forward in July then and just say, this is what we got. And if I'm still here.
That's the way we've done it in the past, where I took recommendations from the chief on how to fill that, so whenever you're ready. Dennis.
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Next up, appointments, animal inspector, AKA barn inspector, Pat Hannon, term to expire June 30th, 2025. I have a statement to read. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 129, Section 15, the Board of Selectmen shall submit the name of a person to serve the town as its animal inspector. In the past, this has been our part-time animal control officer. Our animal control officer is now a police officer. We now have a full-time health agent. Following advice from council and best practices, the position of animal inspector was incorporated into the job description of the town's health agent, who was hired and fired by the Board of Health. When the nominee for animal inspector is approved by the Board of Selectmen, his or her name is submitted to the state for approval. This is the law. This agenda item, because the Board of Selectmen is the legal authority to vote on the position of animal inspector, provides the board with the ability to legitimately look at our current health agent and carefully consider whether he is the right person for this, and scrutinize whether his appointment by the Board of Health has become such a distraction and such a flashpoint that it is impacting the mission of the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, the Town Administrator's Office, and in general the ability for the town to manage the affairs of local government. I will note and reiterate that the Board of Health is the hiring and firing authority for the health agent, but animal inspector is a position that falls within the job description of the health agent, and that falls squarely within the authority of the Board of Selectmen. With that in mind, because of the negative impact that this has had on the business of the town, I'm going to table this agenda item with no further discussion and ask that the town administrator arrange for a meeting as soon as possible with a member of the Board of Health, a member or two of the Board of Selectmen, and perhaps Labor Council to determine next steps. Thank you. Mr. Marcy?
Mr. Chairman, can I also add to that a little bit? I think there's a lot of members of the Agriculture Council here. Whenever this does get decided, I want the Agriculture Council to be involved in that. A lot of our farmers have large animals, and there's specific responsibilities and knowledge that this person might need, to deal with. So I would like them to be involved.
I'll add to that, and then I'll move to the next agenda item.
Thank you.
I was at their last meeting. I know how to contact them, and I shall. Next on the agenda, we have departmental communication. Police Chief, do you have anything?
Nothing else, no.
Anyone else here, departmental? No. So we have student representative? Next, we have board member comments. Mr. Sullivan.
In the expediency of time, I'm all set.
Mr. Johnson.
Sure. I guess not having access to my email all week was detrimental to my understanding of what just happened. So it'll be very interesting to see what next steps are.
Thank you. Mr. Landry.
Thank you, everybody, for getting involved, talking, and being patient. Thank you.
Mr. Marcy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of good work tonight, good discussions, very transparent, public hearing. Like to have a great crowd at the town meeting coming up on May 20th.
Thank you. And also, in the interest of time, I will forego mine. Entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Good night, everyone.
Good night.